Good morning, hello. Today we are going to be taking care of a rather difficult task. We are going to be introducing you guys to Path of Exile. It's a game that I've played on stream quite a few times. However, a lot of people, when they see us play it, we're like, oh, you should play it. It's a good time to get into it, especially with the new league coming out. It seems like it's going to be really, really fun. There's a lot of different ways to play this game. But a lot of people are very intimidated by everything this game has. They see it played, they're like, it seems like a lot, and it is, don't get me wrong, but just because it's a lot does not mean it's hard to learn. So we're gonna go over some basics today. I have a little bit of a list of just the information you need to get started. It's this one little page here, so let's get into this little beginner's guide. We're going to go over things like leagues, classes, sockets, links, gems, flasks, skill points. We're going to take a very brief look at the very expansive skill tree, defenses, items, and currency, just the basics that you need to know. When you first make a Path of Exile account, you're going to create, and there's going to be 3 options here. These 2 are currently not available because the new league is releasing at, I think it's 3 p.m. or 2 p.m. today. But there's typically standard, league, and then hardcore league. Standard, the best way to explain it is that it's an unlimited duration account. They all are. It's not the account. It's like the standard server. It's a basic server with every item that has ever been in the game, unless it's been removed. And then there's hardcore and solo self-found. You're not going to want to use these as someone who's new. There's the league, which is whatever the current league is. So the one coming up is called the Forbidden Sanctum. This is where they introduce new mechanics and stuff like that. So mechanics typically won't be in standard until after the league is concluded. But it's really fun to play League. League is I believe it's 3-month window where you get to play on that server. And then after the league ends, your character is transferred over to standard. So whenever you make a character, no matter how long you have them for, they will eventually transfer over to standard. In the upcoming league, we've got some cool mechanics coming, cool different stuff that's not going to be available in standard, which is one thing I'm excited for. We won't get too into that because we want to keep it pretty basic today. And then there's the hardcore league. As a new player, let me just tell you, don't do it. Do not do it. Hardcore leagues are whenever you die, your character is transferred over to standard. So you have to make it through the whole game without dying. And that's incredibly difficult. However, if you're able to do that, if you're able to get to the end of the game and beat the first bosses or the final bosses and stuff like that in the game, some of the end game content first, then the game will actually reward you with allowing you to do stuff like create items for the game, as well as reward you with special gear called foil gear, stuff like that, for challenges you completed and stuff like that. But we're not going to be looking at hardcore. Even I don't play hardcore with as many hours, thousands of hours as I put into this game. We are, however, going to be doing that. So you would click this here, and let's just say we're going into league. Let's say we're going to click league because that's what I'm going to be doing. You will be greeted with the character selection screen. Characters are non-customizable. They are gender locked, so sorry if that triggers you. And then we're going to go over a couple of the classes here. So we have the Templar, the Duelist. I'm going to go over what each of them are. The Marauder. We're going to skip this one in the middle. I'll tell you why in a second. Ooh, what'd I do? Okay, I went back too far. This one we're going to skip. We have the Deadeye, the Duelist, and the Witch. Just as a little basic understanding, the Witch is the spellcaster of the group. The Marauder is like the big melee of the group. And the Marauder's the melee of the group, and then the Deadeye is obviously the range, the people that use arrows and stuff like that. Then there's the other 3 classes. Duelist is kind of a mix in between like a Deadeye and, hold on, I have them organized on the list. So the Shadow is the difference between a Witch and a Ranger. It's kind of in the middle. Hold on, my stream volume's on. The duelist is kind of in between the ranger and the marauder. You know, if you're not sure whether you want to go bow or melee skills or stuff like that, the duelist is good. The Templar kind of falls in between a marauder and a witch. You could do melee, you could do spell casting. Typically, you know, that's something you would see for defenses and auras and stuff like that. But this last one, Scion, you're not going to have when you first start the game. Don't worry about it. However, this is kind of a like jack of all trades character. You unlock them as soon as you complete the 10th act in the story, which is the final act of the story. And then you will spawn in on a beach where you have to fight your way to the city just as an introduction to the game. This is also where tutorials would take place if you didn't skip past them. And then you're greeted in the town by the main storyline and a couple of rewards. So, next we're going to go over what sockets and links are. This has to do with the way you use and learn skills in Path of Exile. In Path of Exile, there are no like learning the skills, so to speak. You find your skills, you find everything else, and the way you use them is by sockets and links. So let me find an empty piece of gear in my stash. We'll just go to general, and anything in here will work. So let's take this wand, for example. It has 3 sockets, these little things here. And then we have skill gems and then links. So in order to use a skill, you have to place it into the sockets. So let's say I want to use Tempest Shield with this wand. We would just pop it right in there. Once you have this equipped and it's socketed in there, you will see it pop up on this bar. You can program it to whichever button you'd like. For me, my main skill is Lightning Arrow. I have that right here, socketed into my armor. And then we have support gems. So let's go to spell, because Tempest Shield is a spell. Spell support. Let's say like, okay, so we can do this. So I wish I could pin this to the screen and leave this in the background. Gems, skills, supports. There's 2 kinds of gems. They get a little more in-depth than that, but we're going to keep it very, very basic. In order to support a skill, the sockets that connect, or the sockets between them, have to have these little lines here. They have to be linked. So let's see if I have an unlinked piece of equipment. We're going to close that out because I have searches on it. Yeah, so I have one here. I have 2 sockets on here, but they're not linked. So let's say I have a skill in this green one and a support gem in this blue one. They will not work together unless I add the link between them. Now, gear will drop completely randomized, so there's no way of knowing what you're going to get as a drop. There are, however, ways to change what they have for sockets and links, but we will get into that shortly. We're going to go into flasks, these little icons down here. Everybody knows what a flask is. You know, it's a container that holds the liquid. In this case, flasks have special effects. So obviously we have something like a life flask. There are mana flasks in the game, and then there's a couple other different types of flask, like an amethyst flask, which does resistances and stuff like that. There's all sorts of different flasks in the game. This one increases how fast you move. There are flasks for a lot of things. These are going to be very important because, let's say, for me, I have this amethyst flask, this chaos resistance flask, because my character has very bad chaos resistance, which we'll get into resistances as well. But they are very basic piece of gear. You even start with very, very tiny flasks, and then as you go, you will find better ones that will help you more. Almost everybody is always running a life flask. Don't forget to use yours on that first beach, or you might find that first encounter hard. Flasks are going to be necessary to get to that first town. And upon completing it, you will probably have earned 1 or 2 skill points. Now, what are skill points? If we go into here, we have our first look at the Path of Exile skill tree, which is all of these, and this can seem incredibly grueling. It can seem like too much is here, but you don't have to worry about all of these. Depending on which class you chose, you will start in a certain area. So like the duelist will start from down here where these lines kind of separate. The Deadeye starts from over here. The Witch starts from up here, etc., etc. And most of the notables, as we call them, most of the points you're going to allocate on your tree are going to have something to do with the character that you selected. So for an example, I have a Deadeye. One of these first notables is 20% increased projectile speed and projectile damage, projectiles being like arrows and stuff like that. And each class is also going to have more of a certain kind of attribute as well. Same way you would have attributes in other games, we have dexterity, intelligence, and strength. Dexterity applies to accuracy, strength applies to health, and intelligence applies to mana. There are a couple additional effects to those. However, again, we're keeping it very, very basic. So you don't have to, let's say you're a Deadeye, you don't have to worry about this entire half of the tree. So let's not look at that. Let's just start at this tiny small section. It looks a lot easier to deal with when we zoom in on it. When you level up, and through various quests, you will gain skill points. These skill points are what's used to purchase these nodes. So you will obviously start from one of these two spots because it's connected to this little wheel, your starting area. And you will go and you'll try and pick up keystones, notables, and masteries. So keystones are these little things here. Oh, I'm sorry, no, keystones are these big ones. So we have what we're calling travel nodes, which are these tiny little ones. They have a very small buff to your character. Then we have keystones, which are a little bit bigger buffs to your characters. And then we have notables, like this one, Tempered by War, for example. Let's find an easier one. We're going to use a popular one called Chaos Inoculation for this, which a lot of builds try and utilize. They typically come with one really big upside and one really big downside. The best way to use these when you're starting is to look for ones that don't have a huge negative effect on you. So this one is really popular. Your maximum life becomes limited to 1. However, you become completely immune to chaos type damage. Chaos being like an elemental damage type, it's a little bit different because, and we'll get into this, but we're going to get into defenses. Do I have defenses here? I kind of have defenses here. Let's not skip over the skill points and how you want to allocate them as a new player, and then we'll jump into defenses. So as a new player, I mean, again, these are very far on the tree, which means they're going to take a lot of leveling up to get to, and by that point, you will probably know what we're talking about. But we're going to go over these, what you should spend your skill points on when you're just starting out the game. You should spend them on, just to keep it simple, life, damage, defenses, and anything that helps your skill tags. So what I mean by skill tags, if we go into my inventory and we look at my main skill, if you look just up underneath where it says the name of the skill, lightning arrow, you'll see it says attack, AoE, projectile, lightning, and bow. These are the type of modifiers that will affect the, the skill itself. So if we look at here, I have the lightning tag on lightning arrow, and I have this support gem called Innovative Support, which if you read the tags of it up at the top, it also is lightning based, which means these two will work together. The same thing applies to all of these nodes on the tree. So let's say we have projectile damage and projectile speed. Well, if we look, lightning arrow is a projectile skill. So this notable will help my skill get stronger. So skill tags are important when you're considering things. Like, let's say I have one that's like melee damage. My character is not using a melee skill. Melee is not in the skill line, which means this will, melee skill or melee notable would do nothing for it. When you're starting out early, you want to look at things that are going to help boost the damage or help support your skill. And you're going to be looking for life, defenses, and damage. So life, damage, and defenses. Damage is kind of the same as skill tags. If you're finding something like, for example, 20% increased projectile damage, projectile is the skill tag, so I know the 20% increased damage will apply to my skill. That also kind of falls together in damage, but it's important to understand those tags for both your support gems and for the notables you take. Now, what are our defenses? When we're out in the open world and we're getting attacked, what are the defenses that we have? We have a few different types. We have armor, evasion, energy shield, and resistance. Starting with armor, just like it sounds, it's armor you wear. Any piece of gear you put on is going to give you one of these stats. They're all different base types and stuff like that, so different gear will give you different stuff. But if we look at the top, let's not use that one. Let's see if I have one that's non-hybrid. Yeah, so my gloves here. If we look underneath where up at the top, underneath where the quality is, we see armor, 319 armor. Now this adds to your defensive stats. So I have a total of 6,409 armor. But what does armor actually do? Armor helps to reduce the physical damage taken. So this does not apply to elemental damage. This only applies to physical damage, which means if somebody hits me, a monster hits me with a big physical hit, I will take 51% reduced damage from that, which that's a little bit of a high number. We're looking at like later end game numbers here, but I will take that much reduced damage every time I am hit with physical damage. Now, evasion. I have evasion on a few pieces of gear here. As you can see, a lot of mine have both armor and evasion. The caveat here is you get less of each, but you get a little bit of both. Evasion rating, I have 9,510 evasion rating, and this gives me chance to evade attacks. So people will get really in detail and they'll tell you, the calculations behind it and stuff like that. Again, we're going to keep it very simple. Just like it says, when an enemy attacks you, this is your chance to evade the attack, not dodge. Dodge is a different mechanic that is really very rarely seen in the game. You can think of them similarly, but when you evade the attack, it misses you. Plain and simple. Dodge works similarly, however, it applies to different types of skills and attacks and stuff like that might be coming your way. We're not going to get into it because it's not something you need to know to get started. Next, we have energy shield. So on this character, I have no energy shield. You see down the bottom left here where we have my life pool and we have my shield pool. Think of this like your overshield from Halo. This is just an additional life bar that sits on top of your already existing life bar. It's just an added layer of life. Now, we were talking previously about this node up here, just when we were using it as an example, become immune to chaos damage. Now, the reason why people take that is because all damage will hit your energy shield before your life, aside from chaos damage. Chaos damage is the only type of damage in the game that will go past your energy shield, and it will hit your life bar directly. So if you have 100 life, but 1,000,000 energy shield, and you get hit with chaos damage for 100, you're dead. So in the sense that you might have a lot of energy shield, you can take this node, your maximum life becomes 1, but now chaos damage does not affect you at all, and your energy shield is now your new life bar, which is why a lot of people take it. It's if you make your build around it, it can be really powerful. Nice thumbnail, Doodly. Thank you, appreciate it. How goes the Hoodly? Have you tried putting it on Wumbo? And I have a Deadpool? A smorgasbord, as they say. My lady is immune to my chaos damage. Dude, facts. That's how it is. But yeah, so that's why I wanted to use this as an example, because this does affect your defense energy shield. It goes right past it, unless you have this node, in which case you don't even take that type of damage, so you don't have to worry about it. There are a few other items in the game to make it not go past your energy shield, but again, that's getting too complex. We're keeping it easy. We're keeping it simple. This is a new player's guide. The last type of defense that we have is resistances. So the same way we have physical damage reduction, we have elemental damage reduction. In the sense of, I don't think I have any on my tree. However, it's available both on your skill tree and on gear. I'm not taking it on gear, but something like... see, this is a bad example because I don't typically use... Okay, so here we have it on my boots. 30% to cold resistance. Whenever somebody hits me with a cold damage attack, this modifier will mitigate 30% as long as I have positive 30% cold resistance. Now, the reason why I say positive is because there are 2 checkpoints in the game. They're kind of measures of progress, so to speak, in which case you will lose permanently 30% resistance to elemental resistances and to chaos res. So as you can see, my chaos res is negative. Again, we were talking about, I have this flask to help me out with that. Chaos damage, it's tough to deal with, especially as a new player, but don't focus on it right away. You won't see it until the very end of the game anyways. So by the time you get there, you'll know enough about it. But these resistances, let's say you have 75%, which is the cap. I believe it's Act 5. At the end of Act 5, you're going to lose 30%. So that would go down to 45%. And then at the end of Act 10, you lose another 30%. And that's going to go down, to 15%. That being said, you can stack as much res as you want, which is why it's available both on gear and in the tree. So for example, do we have a node here I can show you? Also, whenever you're looking for something, if you need to find it faster in the tree, there is a little search bar because they know this is a lot. Not that you have to worry about all those, but even in this little area, there are a lot of nodes. So let's say I want to look for resistance on my skill tree. I can just come into this search bar and type in resistance. So we have this node I took here, plus 8% to all elemental resistances. That's a very non-specialized node, but there are trees up here. So like this one here. If I were to take that mastery, one of the options for it is 15% to all elemental resistances. And now let's get into masteries. There's a reason why I kind of waited before bringing masteries to the table, because there's a lot of them. Anywhere you see these little trees with the little icons in the middle of them, this one does not have one, but anywhere they have these little pictures, each of these little clusters is going to have to do with the same thing. So we have critical chance and critical strike, which we're not even going to get into, but they're all themed. And when you get to the middle of some of those, once you've taken the biggest node on it, you will see these masteries, and these masteries can have huge benefits. So if you're already taking these 3 nodes, sometimes it can be very beneficial to take this node as well. As you can see, we could have a big effect, such as 150% increased critical strike chance against enemies on full life, which is a mechanic we're not going to get into, but all of these have really big upsides if you're already taking them. Some of them are not worth taking the tree just for the mastery. So plan accordingly. Next, we're going to get into items. We already looked at the basic part of items, the sockets and the links that let us use skills and let us add things to make our skills stronger. But we're going to be going into what makes an item good and the different rarities of items. So we're going to have the normal rarity, the magic rarity, the rare rarity, and then the unique rarity. And these are all a signifier of how many mods they have. So on any piece of gear, we'll take this one again well, we won't use this one. We'll use that for the uniques, but do I have a rare here? Let me just pull out a piece of equipment. I really don't have that many spare weapons. Okay, we'll use this quiver, for example. This applies to any item you find. Can you explain the Poppenheim? Ha. And when does one DOS the Fluten? After the Duten, sir. I can feel the nonsense rising. So no more Smithington Wordsworth. RIP to the boy. So when I unlock monetization, Smithington Wordsworth will be back. But I don't unlock that until 1,000 subscribers. So it might be a while. So the border of this is gold. This is a rare item. Let's say I wanted to... I'm not explaining what I'm doing here. This gray border means it's a regular item, a normal item. It has 1 mod, and that's just the implicit. I'm going to try not to get too much into implicits or explicits, but this can have 0 to 1 mod as a normal item. And then let's say we wanted to make it a magic item. This can have up to 3 mods. So a magic item is one that has 3 mods. And then if we wanted to make it a rare, it can have up to 6 mods. You just gave me a maniacal goal to get you to 1,000 for Smithington we ride. Let's do it. Let's get us to 1,000. So the difference in between rarities of items is simply the modifiers, aside from unique items. Unique items are just that. They only come with typically one set of mods. There are ones that roll varying mods or variant mods, but again, too complex. We're not going that far. We're just getting you into the game. So something like this. This is called the Ashcaller Quartz Wand. And almost always, this is going to come with these exact mods. If I show you, they have a range. Some of them do have a range. So like you can see on our chance to ignite, we have 22%. But that could have been as low as 16%. Those are what's called rolls. On modifiers, almost all modifiers have them. Some of them are set in stone, so they're one set thing. But unique items will typically have sometimes interesting mods that can be really, really useful. So this one has 10% chance to trigger level 10 summon Raging Spirit on kill, which means that if I were to kill a monster, there's a 10% chance that I summon a minion, a Raging Spirit as a minion. Other ones, I do have a few uniques, but I'm trying to think of, or like this one. So we talked about sockets and links, but some items don't have sockets. This is a very specific unique. There's reasons why you would want to use this, and there's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't. Sometimes they're just depending on the build you want to make, depending on the type of playstyle you want to do. So this one has 0 sockets. You can never add sockets to this. You can never add links to this, but it gives you 500 max life, which is a lot. It's a lot of max life, and then 28% increased fire damage. So let's say you wanted a build with really big fire damage and really big life, and you're not using a lot of skills. This could be a good fit for you. Uniques are going to be different all the way around. Every unique is incredibly different. They all do different things. Some of them might work well with your build, some of them might not. Can you add Rock'em to the Sock'em? But let's go back into sockets and links. Let's take that bow, for example. Well, no, we'll use this one, a unique called Asnath's Chant. So the only type of items in the game that can't have sockets are rings. Can have one, it's a specific type of ring. Belts can have 1 or 2, it's a specific type of belt, but we're not going to worry about those. Basic items that have sockets are weapons and armor. Weapons, I will say weapons, helmet, body armor, gloves, and boots. Other than that, sockets on the other gear is kind of rare. You can have 2, let's say I was using wands, I could have a wand in each hand. For me, I'm using a bow, so I have a quiver. Quivers cannot have sockets. But let's say, oh, I can't unlink it, can I? Let's just find a piece of gear. Here, we'll use this one. We'll use this one for example. We're gonna take some of these and some of these. So let's say you find a really cool piece of gear and it's better than what you have, but it doesn't have the sockets you need. It doesn't have the sockets you need, and it doesn't have the links you need, and the sockets are the wrong color. One thing I may have failed to mention. Blue gems go in blue sockets, green gems in green sockets, red gems in red sockets. It's very simple. I apologize for missing it. However, it is important to know. So like this, let's say I have four gems I want to put in this. Let's say it's 1 skill and 3 supports, and I don't have enough to do that. We're going to get into what some of the currency does. Currency is used in purchasing items, both from other players and from NPC vendors. It's used in well, trading and purchase, I guess, are the same thing. And it's used in crafting. Crafting is a very big mechanic. We're just going to give you the basics to get started. Let's say I picked up this piece and it has some mods that I want, like it gives me more max life or more resistances and defenses or more damage. But it doesn't have the sockets I need. What can we do with that? Each currency item in the game, all of these are types of currency. There's a lot of them. You don't have to worry about all of these. You'll probably only see a quarter of these by the end of the main story. Some basic currency types will allow us to change that item. So we have Jeweler's Orbs. These reforge the number of sockets on an item. So if we right click it and apply it to this, we can see it'll give us more sockets. It won't always be 4. That was a little bit lucky, I suppose. And then we have the sockets we need, but they're not all connected, which means only these 2 will work together. What do we do with these other 2? We have Orbs of Fusing. Orbs of Fusing will link, add links or remove links between sockets randomly. So let's say we're gonna hit this one. We have 3. We're gonna have this one. We have 2. and you can keep using these until, look, now they're all linked together, which means now all the gems that are linked together will work together, provided they're, you know, simpatico. But let's say you have the 4 sockets, you have the 4 links, but let's say I'm trying to put a red gem in here, and I can't do that. I can't put a red gem in here because it has blue and green sockets. We have what's called chromatic orbs. These you'll see very early on in the game, and they're super helpful, especially getting through the story. And they just change the colors of the sockets randomly. Now, one thing to note about this is that the sockets, like the chance for different colored sockets is, it's like a weighted chance. As much as it's a gamble, there's only so many patterns it can be. As well as if we look at the requirements on this specific item underneath where you see evasion and energy shield, we see it requires level 52, which means you have to be level 52 to use it. We have requires 58 dexterity and requires 58 intelligence, which means based off the amount of stats that you have, you may or may not be able to use this, but it also means that dexterity and intelligence are going to help partially control the color of the sockets. Dexterity being green, intelligence being blue, and strength being red. Which means with this item specifically, I am more likely to get blue and green sockets than red sockets. So for example, I needed 3 red sockets in this one, and it requires 159 strength. I don't think it actually requires 159, but some of the gems in them have requirements as well. Which will raise the overall just to have it in, you know what I mean? But that means I'm more likely to roll red sockets on this gear. So for example, and obviously the higher the value, so this requiring 159 strength and 88 int is a higher chance to roll red and green and all that. But let's see. So I have green, I have 2 blue, a green, and 1 red. So I'd now be able to do that. But the chance to roll them are weighted. And believe it or not, we are already through it. We are already through the basics, and it took us all of, I don't even know. It took us all of 30 minutes. 30 minutes to go through all of the basics. After that, the game does get more complex, but in order to start the game, it's really nothing that you need to know. It's nothing you need to know how to do. So just to recap, we'll go back to the login screen. When you first make your account, you're going to create a character. I'm going to be doing this in League. These 2 are unavailable because the new League is coming out later today, so they're on hold right now. But you'll select the League that you want to do. Do not do Hardcore as a new player. Don't do it. You're going to hate yourself. You're going to get frustrated with the game, and you're going to quit. Don't do Hardcore Standard either. But you'll select the league that you want to start in. Have you ever heard of Tom Bombadil? No, I can't say that I have. And then you're just going to select your class. Just to recap again, the classes specialize in different things. The Witch is a good spellcaster. The Ranger is really good with bows and arrows. And obviously this big dude with the hammer is going to be swinging a hammer. He's going to be doing melee damage. They all specialize in something aside from the Scion. Which is one thing I did want to mention, is after you've made your character and after you've, you know, figured out the skills and all that, you've had time to do that. Once you reach the end of Act 10, you will unlock the Scion, which is a special class. So the same way, like the Ranger starts over here, the Duelist starts down here, the Marauder starts over here. Actually, the Marauder might be up here, but the Witch is up here. The Scion starts in the dead center. So I said the Scion is a jack of all trades, and that's because the Scion has easy access to all of the tree, which can be a very hefty decision. The reason why this is not something that's available to you at the beginning of the game is because there's so much on this tree that if you had to worry about it all at the very beginning of the game, it would be mind-boggling, and you wouldn't want to do it. So starting with a class, just pick a little window down by your starting area. These are all you have to worry about. Don't worry about any of the other passive points. After you've made a build and you had fun playing and you want to try and do Scion, go right ahead. But do not worry about all of the rest of the tree far away from where you are until you've hit the end of the game, basically. The main game, as far as length, if you guys are wondering how long it takes, has 10 acts. These are all locations. This is a town. And then all these little open world locations for you to explore. They're all going to have missions in them. Some of them you're not going to have to get into. However, there may be benefits to going there, even if the story doesn't need you to. You will be traveling back and forth between these during each act, and then there is 10 acts. Some of them are a lot bigger, some of them are a lot smaller, like this one has a lot of locations, this one doesn't. And after you reach the end of Act 10, you'll be brought to a place in the epilogue, this little town here, and you'll be starting what's called maps, which this is already farther than I thought we were going to get today, truth be told. And maps are just little things that you put in a device, and they're like additional areas to go and play. The same way we can use currency on pieces of gear, which I'm going to put back in my stash, my little loot stash. The same way you can add modifiers or add links and sockets to gear, you can add modifiers, not links and sockets, to your maps as well. So like this has nothing on it. As we can see, it's got a gray border. It is normal, which means if we use this, we'll turn it into a rare. And now it can have anywhere from 4 to 6 mods. We only got 4 on this one, but no big deal. And then you'd put them in this little map device, and it'll give you a little area to go in and play and get more XP, get more items. Maps have tiers. When you first hop in, these are going to be... Most players refer to them by color, and then tier is specific later. So, like, you're going to be in white maps, these ones here, which are easier. They're similar to the end of the game, or the end of the main story. Yellow maps, which are a little bit harder than the end of the game, and red maps, which can be... They can be pretty difficult depending on how much you want to put into the map, how hard you want to make it. You can make them harder. I don't want to explain how, because there's a lot, like all this other stuff here I don't want to get into. But you can make them harder if you want to. More risk, more reward. I almost forgot the XP bar. So the XP bar is expansive. The maximum level in this game is 100. Nice and easy. Each level takes a little bit more XP than the last. So like I said, when you first start the game, you're going to start on the beach. By the time you kill the little mini boss and then get into the town, you'll probably have gone up 1 or 2 levels. It's going to take more and more XP to get to the end of the game. As you can see, I am only level 95. And that is because after Act 10, after you finish the main story, if you die in a map, or if you die, you know, go back into the main story or whatever and die, which unlikely, but if you die, you'll lose, I think it's 10% XP. During the story, I don't think you lose any XP up until like the last few acts, in which case you'll lose 5%. But again, when you're low levels and in the story, you're not going to notice it. You're just going to be leveling up super fast, taking those skill points, getting stronger. But when you hit the end, you will lose a little bit more XP, which can be a little bit more difficult to gain as you approach level 100. So this is a map. My maps are not going to be nearly as hard. There's going to be a lot of things on screen, but again, I use lightning arrow with all of these supports. We don't have to worry about what they are, and they all make lightning arrow stronger. So does some of the stats on my gear, like my bow adds additional damage, so on and so forth. Ah, I heard a six link. Ooh, a memory. In the maps, you're gonna find other mechanics as well. They'll introduce you to those mechanics in the story, so I don't want to tell you about all of them. I think one of the ones they're taking out of the story coming up is going to be a character in the game called Einhar, who basically you follow him, or he follows you around. He helps you kill special beasts inside your maps, and then those beasts can give you rewards later on, which again, they're involved in crafting, and I don't want to go into crafting. So again, there's a lot going on screen, but now that you know, does it seem easier to follow for the people who don't play Path of Exile? I have a skill. I have a skill that I'm using to kill monsters. I have defenses, because I put defenses on my gear and on my tree. And now I'm just going to run around the map killing things, collecting rewards. It's simple. This game can get very grindy towards the end if you're looking for like, oh, I need a specific piece of gear and stuff like that. It can be hard to find them, but you're going to be running a lot of these maps to try and level up anyways. Also, if you are a big fan of big boss fights, this game does not disappoint. After you've completed the main 10 stories, and you will see bosses in the story, after you've completed the main story, gotten into maps, and started getting into some of the harder maps, at the very end of the game, you will start fighting some very big, beefy, and challenging bosses. I can do some of them, I can't do all of them, but they're a lot of fun, and they have really high reward rates, because obviously, you know, more risk, more rewards, the harder it is, the more you're going to be rewarded to do it. That's one thing that Path of Exile is very open about, is they want the challenge of the game to be linear to how much you feel like you've earned out of it. So we were talking about unique items and how sometimes they can have special modifiers that regular items can't have. There are certain uniques in the game, and this is a little bit farther than I thought we were getting again. But there's certain uniques in the game that can only drop from certain bosses. Now, if you can't go and kill the boss and you really want the unique, don't worry. There are other ways to get it. You can trade with other players. But if you relish the challenge, go right ahead. Start running at that boss as many times as it takes to get the item, you know? And there's some really, really good items out there, too. Plus, if you get a different item, not one that you wanted, you can always sell it to other players for more currency. It's... I hate those things. So this is what's called ritual altars. Do I want to get into the mechanics? I feel like getting into the mechanics might be confusing for new players. I don't think I'm going to get into the mechanics because, again, you're going to learn about them in the stories. You might see me playing them here.
I'm not up to that just yet.
And now let's get into the fun bit once I clear this map. And that's league start. So like I was saying earlier, the league is going to change every 3 months, and when it does, you're going to have the opportunity to create a new character in that league. At the end of the league, your character will be transferred to the standard server. But there's all sorts of new mechanics, new stuff in the new leagues, so they're always fun to play. They're always worth it, you know. Well, maybe not always. There's some complaints about the last league, but that's a different story, you know. Oof. But yeah, when you get into the league, there's going to be special mechanics, special stuff like that. But every league, everybody who participates in the league is making a new character. So you're not going to be super far behind everybody else. It's just a matter of, you know, everybody starts the new league at the same time. And then once they do, it's just how much you play, how fast you go, stuff like that. It's not a race. The only race is in hardcore, and it's for very big rewards. It's not worth even getting into for new players. But go at your own pace. Play through the new mechanics, play through the new stuff in the new leagues. We're gonna take that. We're gonna take the gambler. But since there's always new stuff coming out for leagues, since league is always gonna have something fresh and exciting, you might say, oh hey, well I really like the character that I made, but I want to try a different skill. I want to try some of the new stuff. Case in point, there is a new gem coming out called I won't get into what Vol skills are. They're variations of other skills, but they're more specific. A variated version of a skill that exists in the game called Cleave. And I was like, oh, well, the new skill looks really cool. So when I start League, I'm going to be doing a Vol Cleave build for those who might be more familiar with the game. I'm going to be using a unique item called At Series Disfavor. Some of the currency items, too, are literally just, they have basic functions. Like what you just saw me use is called a portal scroll. Hold on, bud. Gotta grab the item. Word. So just like that. That's how easy trading is. You grab the item out of your stash. Either you right-click on the player and click trade, or they do that to you. It depends, you know. It doesn't really matter, but... And then they're going to give you currency. You're going to give them an item. I will say it's kind of a useful thing in Path of Exile, is that in order to confirm the trade, before you can confirm the trade, you have to look at each item, which even if you just flick your mouse over it, you know what I mean? You're like, yeah, that's what I want. Go ahead. You have to read the item, which means someone's not going to swindle you super fast and try and put the wrong item in the chat, and then you're just not going to see it because you didn't look at it, because you have to look at it. So if you're ever worried about, which I've never had an issue with that, I've heard it is a thing. However, you can confirm that that's exactly what you want to make before you do any of that. So look, we came out of that one quick and easy map with some currency. We won't go over what all of them do. Unidentified. That seems pretty cool. I don't know who's calling me. Hold on, who that? Who that man? Who him is? Culver, Indiana? Preposterousness. Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. Yes, dodge is a mechanic in the game that we're not going to get into either because it's very rare. Tom Bombadil is actually from Lord of the Rings. I didn't know that. I'm gonna send you a video on him. Is it a lore video or is it like a meme video? Tempest Shield, we're gonna put this back. So I kind of hoard my gems. You don't have to do this, but like, let's say you're making builds only in standard and you're not doing the leagues and stuff like that. You could experiment with some of these, throw some of them into your build, have fun with them. There is a lot of skill gems in this game. This is not nearly all of them. You don't have to worry about them. If you're like, I don't know what skill I want to use, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, you could always go to YouTube and search PoE build guides, and these will break it down as simple as possible. Top 5 best league starters for 3.19. We're going to 3.2 Forbidden Sanctum, and people love to make videos about their starters because people get excited. They're like, oh, this thing excites me. Here's what I'm thinking of doing. Here's how I'm planning on doing it. And for those who are more into the math of the game, like that the game has calculations and special features, there's a third-party app called Path of Building, which I'm going to open this. If you're a new player, do not worry about this. Do not let this intimidate you. This is for the latter players. This is something that people do. Because obviously, until the new season drops, we can't get our hands on the items. We can't run and test out how the build feels. So there's a tool that we can use called Path of Building, in which we can put, like, look, I have my skill gems here. And it'll tell you things like, oh, well, here's your build idea. It has 4,000 life. Your build idea does 3 million damage, which that's a lot. That's a lot. I've been playing this meticulously. But for those interested in my Vol Cleave build, I do not have Vol Cleave socketed because obviously it is not in the game yet. You can, however, manually modify items, so that way you can check out what the new ones are gonna do, as long as you word them right. So we're getting a lot more range on an axe called At Series Disfavor, which means, I mean, obviously if you're doing a melee attack, you don't want to have to be in their face, punch and punch and punch, and you want to be able to stand back sometimes, get to safety, or, you know. As much as you have defenses in the game, dodging is still important, especially for me, where I have poor resistance to chaos damage. If something with big chaos damage is coming at me, I'm not going to stand there and hope I survive. I'm going to move. I'm going to get the heck out of there. Can I be a healer in this game? I like this question. This is great. So while there are technically no healers, you can be a support character. Tom specifically runs what's known as an aura bot, which, without getting into the nitty-gritty of things, is a character that just by being near you or being in your party, like close enough to you, will buff your character. You can have aura bots that boost your damage. You can have aura bots that boost your defenses. You can have aura bots that do both. There's all sorts of support ways to play if you're not really interested in the do-it-myself kind of role. If you're more of, I always want to play as a team, there are certainly builds you can try, certainly ways you can do that. I appreciate you for asking that question. There are literally characters in the game that are designed just to run around with you to make the items that drop more valuable. That's a thing. Item quantity and item rarity are just what it sounds like. How much items you get and how rare the items are. And obviously you're not going to be like, oh, well, I'm getting the best item in the game because this guy's with me. But you're going to get better items. There are characters that play like that as well. You can play this game any number of ways, and like I said, with how many mechanics are in this game. Let's say you really don't like maps. What else can you do? There's a mechanic called heist, in which you're really just gonna run into something similar to a map, and you're gonna break your way into a vault, killing a couple of enemies here and there, and then once you grab the loot, you're gonna run and get out of the map, and that's it. There's a new one coming that's almost like dungeon crawling, where there's tiers to this section, tiers to this mechanic. I don't really know how to describe it because it isn't out yet. We haven't gotten our hands on it, so I can't say 100% what it's going to be like. And in the new mechanic, you run through specific rooms trying to get to the end room with all the treasure. And as you go, it's going to get harder, but the rewards are going to increase. Again, the company that makes this game is very big on saying, hey, we want you to feel like you were well rewarded for how hard you tried. And it really is good quality of life. They're very open. They listen to their community. I know I told you guys, do not worry about hardcore. Do not ever try hardcore as a new player. One of the coolest things I like about this game is the first people to kill the end game bosses, the like final bosses of the game in hardcore mode, which again, if you die in hardcore mode, your character is moved from hardcore to standard and you'd have to start over. Very frustrating. I will never play it. But if you can manage to climb the ranks, get through the entire game without dying once and kill the end game bosses, there is a chance that you will be able to design items for the game. Like, they will contact you, you know, you can be like, hey, like, I think I want an item that does this in the game. You know what I mean? I don't know how the whole process works. I was talking with Tom about it. We think maybe they're like, okay, well, we can do that effect. Here are your choices for what kind of items we'll put it on and stuff like that. Some of these, I won't get into divination cards. I was going to tell you guys about divination cards. These kind of tarot card looking things, but I think even that's a little bit overwhelming for new players. We're already covering way more than I thought we were ever going to cover. I can put this back in my stash as well. That made a good example. Do you guys feel like you understand the game? Can I get a show of hands? Show of hands. Ah. Boom. So the same way your inventory works, it's just this big space, and like, let's say this belt is 2 slots wide. Boom. Put it here. You can only fit so many things. Let's say I have this big clunky thing in the way. I can't put my belt here. I mean, I can since this is full, but your inventory towards the end of the game will fill up. That's what the stash is for. Oh, it's in hardcore solo self-found. Okay, so the difference between hardcore and hardcore solo self-found. In regular modes, regular league and in standard, we have the ability to trade with other people. In fact, on top of this game-wide server chat, we have local chat, party chat for players that you're playing with. I usually keep global off because it's distracting. And then we have a trade chat, which means, let's say you want to buy or sell something. You could say, I want to sell or I want to buy X item. So like, this guy wants to sell this item for this amount of money. 1M is a mirror. As a new player, do not worry about a mirror. You will never see one. Who's to know? I mean, you could be one of the very lucky players. It is the rarest item to obtain in the entire game, and it's a currency item. It is the biggest and beefiest of currency items. I know I said all currency items do something, but I'm not even going to tell you what the mirror does, because I mean, the odds that I ever see one in my career playing are extremely low. I am not super end game, but some of the big YouTubers and streamers you'll see will have them. It's kind of a flex. But in solo self-found, hardcore solo self-found, or regular solo self-found, there is no trading. You only get the items that you find. So, for example, in this map that we just ran, which I still have to clear out the altar here for, let's say, like this gear here. I can only pick up and use the items that I find. I cannot trade other players for those items, which is what makes it even harder. They just rolled out an absolutely preposterous game mode called Ruthless, which is even harder than that. Not gonna get into it. Where is that other altar? Ooh, what are you? What are you? I also have widgets to check prices on things as well, which again is not something that's necessary to play the game. Do not think everything that you see people do in the game is necessary for it. Metamorph, Scours. Yeah, let's take it. That's going to be really good next league. Socketed gems are supported by level 20 blasphemy. Curse auras from socketed skills also affect you. Oof, self-curse. Socketed curse gems have 80% increased reservation efficiency. Oh, that's huge. That's a really good ring. So one little tip I want to give you. So you see, I mean, we talked about briefly what auras are. Curses are just like they sound. They are things that hurt you, or when you like, I don't want to say hurt because they don't necessarily deal damage, but like they apply a debuff. So I have this curse here on me right now. This is your status bar, by the way. You can see all of your buffs and all of your debuffs that are affecting you currently at any time up top here. So I have a curse on me called Elemental Weakness. Just like it sounds, I am taking more elemental damage because I am cursed with this. Now, let's say you're using something like this because you want to curse the enemies around you, or you want to use a curse skill. This has a mod that says curse auras from socketed skills. Again, this is a ring that has a socket. It's one of those rare ones. Also affect you. So let's say I wanted to put a curse in this and try and use it on you know, enemies and monsters. I'm going to curse myself by accident, which is a downside that you're typically not going to want. However, let's say we found a way to make that downside not apply. We can find an immunity to curses, an immunity to ailments and stuff like that, which ailments are a little more comprehensive, keeping it very basic, very, very basic. But there are ways to mitigate all the negative things that can happen to you, either to reduce their effect or to prevent them entirely. So let's say I wanted to use this, but I don't want to curse myself, but oh hey, I'm immune to that curse, or I'm immune to curses. I can use this ring with no downsides, and that's kind of an idea you want to stick within the game. Again, we talked about this here. Maximum life becomes 1 and become immune to chaos damage, because if you have a bunch of energy shields and not a lot of life, or even if you had a decent amount of life, but you're dying a lot to chaos damage, that could be huge. If you have a ton of energy shield, having only 1 max life isn't really too bad. I'm trying to think of what another good one I could compare is that has a big downside, but that might not apply to me. I've got an idea. The same way you deal critical strikes in other games, other RPGs, critical strikes are a thing in here. It's like this one here. 40% more attack damage if your accuracy rating is higher than your maximum life. However, you can never deal critical strikes. Let's say I use a build that doesn't rely on critical strikes anyways. That doesn't really apply to me, so I'm just reading it as 40% more attack damage if my accuracy rating is higher than my maximum life, which almost always it's going to be. Some of these are just huge pluses, but some of them do have caveats. I'm trying to look for more good examples of that. I don't really use too many of them in my build. Like, what's one that I could use as an example? On my build, I don't have too many examples of that. On this build, anyways. I do have a few builds. Let's go back to the login screen. So I do have some other characters. Most of these characters you see here, this was my first ever character. It was a build that didn't work, and I still got it to level 60. Still completed the main story. I think I completed the main story on this. Level 60, I might be towards the end of the game. But like this was my character last league. I named it Lake of Kalan D's Nuts because it was Lake of Kalandra. Thought it was funny. The meme team, this is a minion build, stuff like that. What's a good example? Let's see. What is an item? I mean, we did have the Kelm sign in my stash, my hideout inventory. Oh yeah, hideouts are fully customizable, by the way. George, I'm looking at you. Fiends Media, I'm looking at you. This little area here is my hideout. I have customized it. I have put things where I wanted them. I built this hideout. So there is base building in this game for Fiends Media and for George, in which you can have different hideouts and stuff like that. You can choose the layout. There's literally just this edit button. If you're interested in just the base building, you will get these. You can even rotate items. It's like map device. I don't think I can edit the map device while there's a map open. But like, let's say I want to move her around. I can move her anywhere I want. Same thing with the items in your any item in your hideout you can move. Most items, even these trees. I put these trees here, so there is base building, kind of. You can build your own hideout. There's a few different options. You don't have to have a layout like this or one that looks like this. There's so many different ones. There are even rare hideouts in the game that you can only get from some of the end game bosses that are like really, really cool. I built this little fountain, stuff like that. So like, if you're willing to take the time, if you're really like one of those players that's really just invested in like building things, this is a great game for you. You can build a character with crazy ideas, whether they work or not. You can build your hideout. Hideouts are the same across all characters, so if I switch to a different character, I'm going to have the same hideout. You cannot have different hideouts for different characters, unfortunately. So let's say I go to my other bow build. Now this one works kind of like the other one, but not quite. And I go to my hideout, it is going to be the same hideout. Same stuff. I don't really remember where I was at with this dude. I guess I was in white maps. Never really got him too far. I beat the main story with him. I got some rewards out of it. I just kind of wanted to try out last league, see how it was. But I didn't really get too invested in this character. But this is what he looks like. The gear you have is going to actually show on your character as well. There are microtransactions in this game, so if you don't like the way something looks, you can pay to customize the look of a character if you want to do that. I am personally not a fan of spending money if I don't have to. This game is entirely free. Entirely free. It can be played for $0. You don't have to purchase the game. It is a free-to-play game. And then every time they come out with a new season or a new league, as they're called, they'll also give you packs. They'll make certain packs available with different cosmetic items and stuff like that. There is no way to pay to get better than somebody at this game. This game, one of the reasons why it's so great is because you're going to be as good as you are for how much time you spent, how much thought you put into it, how much practice with your character you've had, stuff like that. You will never run into a player who is better than you because they spent more money on the game. That is not a thing in this game, and I love that. A lot of games that have microtransactions let that slide, and it kind of makes them less fun to play because you can try as hard as you want, but if you're not spending money, you'll never be as good as some of the other players. This game is not like that. Not like that at all. Next patch, they're bringing back the Primordial Blocks map, which has a very small chance to have a rare hideout discoverable inside. I didn't know that. What's the name of the hideout? We can take a look at it. I'm actually interested to see it. I will say the one microtransaction you may want to make, and some people are not going to be happy about this, is trading. I believe you're able to trade with other players without having to pay for it. However, I have some tabs, some little areas in my stash where I have things for sale. But in order to have a tab, it's called a public tab because the public can see what's in it and they can see what you list prices at. You do have to make a one-time $20 transaction. However, if you get to the end of the game, if you beat the main story and spent all that time and you enjoy the game, I would say it's 1000% worth it. It just takes you so much farther. It gets really, really fun. I believe you can still trade with players without it. However, you cannot list things for sale. So you can buy things. I don't think you can sell things though. If I'm incorrect, somebody let me know as well. I should also mention white sockets. We talked about blue, red, and green sockets. They take blue, red, and green gems. White sockets, plain and simple. They can have any color gem in them. You're not going to find a lot of these. You might find a tabula rasa. Maybe not find it. But they're super cheap to buy. And especially when we were talking about how, you know, I have one skill and I have five gems that support that skill in my body armor here, to make my skill stronger. Let's say, you know, you're in the middle of the story and you're like, oh, well, I can only have 3 supports on my one skill. I need a way to do more. These are super cheap. I'm pretty sure here. Let me go to there is a trade website if you want to check the value of things as well. It's pathofexile.com. They have trade. You just sign in with your account. You do have to be signed in to whatever account you run your game off of. so that way they know, you know, who is what and stuff like that. It also makes a nice way to make messaging easy. That item specifically is called Tabula Rasa. It always has 6 sockets. The 6 sockets are always linked, and the 6 sockets are always white. The only difference is it has no stats. There are never going to be stats on a Tabula Rasa unless you do what's called corrupting, which maybe we'll get into since we have so much time. But as you can see, 5 Chaos Orbs. As I said, you're going to find some Chaos Orbs during the story, maybe like a third of the way through the story, or like even possibly sooner. You'll probably have 5 Chaos Orbs. So if you're like, my character is really underpowered, I don't have enough sockets to add support gems to make my skills stronger, Tabula Rasa, very great way to go. A lot of people call stuff like this leveling uniques, unique items that just make getting through the story and getting to the end of maps so much easier. What's the other one? There's a helmet that's considered a leveling unique. Is it Gold Rim? Yeah, it's called Gold Rim. And the reason why this is good is because it comes with a lot of elemental resistance on it. So like, let's say you keep dying to elemental damage and you're like, well, it's really tough for me to get elemental damage. I'm just not finding good gear. You can buy one of these, 35% to all elemental resistances, especially in the story. That is probably more than you need. For the first half of the story, that's more than you probably need. So I wanted to talk about corruption. We have a specific currency item called a Vol Orb, which corrupts an item, modifying it unpredictably. This is a little bit later. I mean, you might use a Vol Orb in the story. I don't think I used a Vol Orb until after the main story was over. But when you corrupt an item, as it's called, once it's corrupted, like my gloves here, you can no longer change the item. For the most part, there's a technicality to that, but that's too advanced. You can no longer change the item, which means I cannot change the modifiers on this. Like, for example, what we were doing with that quiver where I made it normal and then I made it magic and then I made it rare. There are people who will, you know, keep swapping those out or keep trying to get specific mods. Like, let's say you need more elemental resistance, you can try and get that on a piece of gear. But once it's corrupted, it is not changeable. You can't change the modifiers on it, you cannot change the sockets on it, and you cannot change the links on it. When you corrupt an item, there is a chance that you will gain an additional mod known as an implicit modifier, or corruption implicit. So this one, for example, I corrupted it. Again, Tabula Rasa will always have no mods. It will always have 6 sockets, and it will always have 6 links. So most people are going to corrupt them as soon as they find them because there's no downside. There's no downside to corrupting a Tabula Rasa. Aside from, there's a chance that it will turn it into a rare item. So you might lose the stats, you might lose the sockets and links, but the chance is more rare than getting a random implicit. Like, do I have an implicit on this? So for this one, for these gloves, I corrupted them, or I might have bought them corrupted, but when they were corrupted, they gained the implicit. Let me make sure these are... That's not a corruption implicit. What's a corruption implicit? Do I have any corrupted gear? An example of this. I mean, a corruption implicit, it'll even say, if you look at the, you know, the further details for the modifier, corruption implicit, meaning it only comes from corruption, or usually only comes from corruption. And it gave me 4 to 6% increased maximum energy shield. I don't use energy shield. I'm also not using this body, but let's say, you know, you were using this and you had a little bit of energy shield, you might get lucky, you might get a stat that you want. There are some really broken corruption mods in the game. What did I have this listed at? This one for 8 chaos. I'm gonna list mine for 10. 6 linked items used to be very expensive until a couple of updates to the game. They are now not so much. That's just an implicit. That's just an implicit. So when you corrupt an item, there's a chance that nothing changes. The item just becomes not changeable, which can be cool. But corruption can have some other cool effects. There's so many things that corruption can do, but that's the basic part of it. What else can we go over? So for flasks, just like every other item in the game, there are mods you can add to them. There are... Can flasks be rare? I don't even know. I don't even use rare flasks. I'm such a scrub. I don't even know. Let's find out. So we're gonna remove the mods on this, and we're gonna see if we can't. Yeah, cannot apply to the current item. So flasks can only be normal, rare, or unique. I have a bunch of extra gear saved up. This is, for the most part, stuff that I just got from playing through the main story. Maybe not some of this stuff up here, but like all of these were just stuff that I found playing through the story, stuff like that. Primordial pools. Let's take a look at it. Primordial pools. Hideout. Let's go to Google Images. Oh, primordial blocks. Primordial blocks or primordial pools? This one's actually really cool. It's like, as you can see, it's a rare hideout. It has this cool like space effect around it. I actually might be running those maps because that's kind of a really cool hideout. I think I might like to play it. I think I might like to use it. I would change my hideout, however, I'm not really hoping to. But yeah, that's the basic of the game. Do we have any non-PoE players in the chat that want to weigh in on how they feel about all the information I've been dropping? Just a little feedback to, am I making it too complex? Is it easy to understand? Does it seem like a game that you would play? If we have any non-PoE players, let me know. AXGF, I know you said you're not really particularly interested in Path of Exile, but if you're here, do you feel like you kind of understand the game now? I'm gonna keep running maps in the meantime. Again, this game can be grindy. You might spend a lot of time. Well, I wanted to list this for sale. When listing things for sale, simply put them in your tab. I'm gonna price check this, which you might not have the means to do. 5 Chaos, 2X, 1 Divine. Oh, these went up in price. I think last time I checked this, it was like 10C. That one for 5 Chaos 2 months ago, I might go buy that, actually. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go buy it. So I'll show you how a trade works real quick, if I can get him to answer. Sometimes people don't answer their trade messages when they receive them. Ooh, I'm gonna run that next, actually. So we simply go to the trade site, which I have bookmarked. What's the name of the item? The name of the item is Rot Blood Promise. So we're gonna search Rot Blood Promise, unset ring, for 5 Chaos, and I'm gonna message him. So where it says Direct Whisper, the reason why your account is linked, because if you look, once I hit that button, it sends the message in-game automatically. Let's see if he answers me, because that would be a pretty cool flip. The basic currencies you're going to see people trading in are Chaos Orbs, which are pretty easy to find, Exalted Orbs, and Divine Orbs. These two are equally as rare to find. Divine Orbs are worth more. If we look, they're worth 183 Chaos. They are very far up right now. These are worth like 24 Chaos. Huh? Someone's selling Exalted Orbs for 1 Chaos? That's probably a scam. It's probably not real. Currency I want. Let's see if we can't. Or here. So you can also, if you don't want to hit this direct button, you can also copy the message. And then we can copy and paste. And it'll send a private message to them. There's no way they sell these to me, right? Imagine if they sold me these. Yeah, so sometimes if people know their item is listed incorrectly, or they just don't want to sell it, or sometimes if the trade isn't worth their time and they're busy, they won't answer. But let me also put this away. Here, I'll put it, keep it nice and neat. I tried to tidy up my tabs yesterday. When you play for a long time and you're just chucking things in here, it can get a little hectic. Some tabs are organized, like the currency tab will always be organized. I think that's it. There are other specific kinds of tabs you can buy. Tabs specifically for maps, or specifically for cards, or specifically even for unique items. There are some people in this game who play the game because they like to collect cool items. If I go into global, I don't want to whisper this guy. I want to go to global chat. What's the rarest item you guys own? I'm gonna see if people will tag some of them, but there are some people who literally just play this game because they like to collect cool and rare items. A girlfriend. 5 hours, yeah, 5 hours to go for League. They're talking about when does the League start. The rarest item I have is Calm's Roots. Has no sockets, cannot be knocked back. 155 max light. Ooh, I've actually never seen that one before. Oh, and it also has a corrupted implicit. We were talking about corruption modifiers. Let's see what it's worth with that. 10 chaos. I don't. That's he's trolling. That's not rare. Transition to an advanced guide and watch the Snap-O video. Snap-O? Oh, you're talking about the. I see. Snap. So there's some of the big name players in this game will literally go as far as to like spend hours and hours not only making their build, but coming up with strategies for the new stuff that's coming out, figuring out the best way to play with multiple players. That's what he's talking about. Our guild leader only plays to collect rare things. Dude, the leader of our guild, there are guilds in this game, by the way. You have to be invited to join a guild. However, guilds do things like share resources. So the same way I have a stash for all of my stuff, the guild also has a stash of their own stuff. Like, they have a lot of stuff in here. Public quad. So, like, for them, public is, you can take these items. So this one has a tabula rasa in it. So let's say you were in a guild and you didn't have good equipment. If it's in a public tab, or if it's, you know, for up for grabs, you can take it. Which is huge benefits to a guild. You also run into some really cool people. A lot of our guild mates are just really cool people. They're willing to help out. Like, sometimes when I'm making an item, if I'm trying to make an item a specific way, you have what's called a crafting bench. And pretty basically, you would just stick an item in it, and then it's going to give you what modifiers you can and can't put on it. Let's see if we have an item we can just kind of chuck in there to show you an example. Unique items, you cannot put crafted modifiers. You cannot craft modifiers on it. You cannot change the mods on unique items, we already mentioned. Where's that quiver we were using? Right here. So let's say I put this in here. It's going to show me red, I can't craft that. This item already has that mod type. So if it already has it, this has 13 max life, I can't craft more life onto it. This is just to ensure that people don't have wumbo stacks that make an item super broken, but I could add damage to it. I could add, well, none of this stuff. The reason why I can't add this stuff is because there's two types of modifiers, prefix and suffix. If you want to see the details on it, I don't know what it is on controller, but it's Alt on PC, and it'll tell you the max life is a prefix, the fire resistance is a suffix, resistances will always be suffixes, max life will always be prefixes. Mods have set, like, families, I guess you might say. But you can craft things on here. You find these crafts as you play through the game. So, like, undiscovered. Look, I don't have these ones. However, my body armor can have up to 3 crafted mods, even though I haven't discovered it yet. And the reason is because I messaged our guild and I was like, hey, can I buy this craft off of somebody? You know, all crafts have a cost. So this one is 4 chaos. This one's 1 exalted orb. You'll know what each of these images are after you play for a bit. But that one is, I think it's 2 exalted orbs, or it might be 2 divine orbs. I don't know if they changed it, but I don't have it. So I was like, hey, can I pay somebody in the guild? Can I give you the money and a little bit extra as a tip, you know, or as a service fee? And will you put that mod on there for me? And, like, you can ask random players. It's a little more of a risk, because at least with a guild, you know, if there's an issue, you can talk to the guild leader about it. And one of my guildmates was like, yeah, I can do that for you. Here, come through. And I gave him the item and the currency, and he traded me back to currency. I was like, wait, what? I was like, no, I'm paying you for that. And he's like, nah, you got it. It's fine. Some people are very just rich or generous or both, you know? And it's really cool to be in a guild, especially if they're not a toxic guild and they're just cool people. So this guy's giving away an item for free. Gone, sorry. Damn, that went fast. I'm not going to get into influenced items. That's very end game. So one of the rarest items I own, for example, is this thing called the Replica Headhunter, which is a very end game item, but it's an item that a lot of people want. And the reason why is 20% chance, that final mod on the list there, 20% chance when you kill a magic monster to gain its modifier for 60 seconds. Now, the same way that rarity applies to items, it applies to monsters as well. So we can have normal monsters, which you'll probably see when you very first start the game. Midway through the game, you probably won't see normal monsters anymore. They'll almost always be magic or above. I'm not sure when that transition really happens. But they can be magic monsters with like 2 mods or very like low quality mods. They can be rare monsters with a lot of mods or a lot of like a couple of really big mods, or they can be unique monsters, which is typically what bosses are. There's a couple other monster types that are also unique, but they're, you know, not as important. This is also a very big one. Mage Blood is one that a lot of people want. This is one of the more expensive items in the game. This is a very rare belt. So is this Mirror Shard, but we're not going to talk about that. And the reason why people would want this one is because it has the unique modifier. The leftmost 4 magic utility flasks constantly apply their effects to you. So like I have a lot of unique flasks, but let's say I have this amethyst flask and this movement speed flask. So this chaos resistance and this movement speed flask, and I had them on the left and I put that belt on, they will now permanently apply. They will now permanently apply. I'm trying to think what else I can go over, but I'm pretty sure we're already like way past the basics, you know? Do I have to go to Kirak to do that?
I'm not up to that.
How do I use a Kirak mission? Oh, okay. Item is unusable. Oh, have I not completed that map? So there's also the Atlas, which is... This is just a map of the actual maps. So we see here we have the Wasteland map, which is connected to these. So like if you ever wanted to get a sense of like how big the actual world is, these are all just connected maps. There's little, you know, pathways and stuff. Think of this like a world map almost. And then there's, I don't know if I want to get into the Atlas skill tree, because there is a regular skill tree for your skills and for your character, but there's also a smaller skill tree, like much smaller skill tree for your map that just, you know, it adds things like if you want more items to drop, or if you like a specific mechanic, you can get more of them. I'm not going to go super in detail with this because it can be very confusing, and that's going to be changing and getting bigger next league, which is coming in a couple hours, so I'm not going to get into those. Let's see if I can't do this memory though. This is my first one of these I've found, but like it says, players in area take on the form of harbingers. Items found in areas are replaced by stacks of currency shards. So let's see if we can't find a nice little T16 we've completed. Will this apply? Item is why is item unusable? Can we do it to like T12? I don't know why it says item is unusable. It will likely be supported in the next update. Oh, I think it's because the league is disabled, so maybe the mechanics for it are as well. I keep my my tabs organized by level of difficulty, and then I keep these special maps up top and a couple special maps over here and stuff like that. I'm gonna have to figure out what's going on with that, but I don't currently know why that's not working, but I did want to check that out. I have yet to do one of those, so I don't really know what they entail. And the same way, some modifiers on your skill tree can have a negative effect on you, or on your gear might have a negative effect on you. Some maps might have a negative effect on you. So like this one has a minus 12% maximum player resistance. Typically, most of these mods are going to make the map harder. But let's say none of those really apply. So for example, let's say this map has players are cursed with temporal change, but you're immune to curses. You wouldn't have to worry about that. Every build is going to have mods that they handle really well, and a lot of builds are going to have mods that they struggle with. I have some mods that I struggle with. I do a lot of elemental damage, and there's a mod that is monsters in your map reflect 18% of elemental damage, which means every time I deal elemental damage, I take elemental damage. And since I do so much damage, I can accidentally kill myself in the map, which is, you know, something you want to avoid. So when you get there, keep it in mind. It's a long ways down the line. I hope the beginners aren't lost on that. But my build going into next league, I'm probably going to stream some of it. What the hell?
I'm not up to that just yet.
My strategy with maps is typically to go around the outside of the map first. Go around the outside of the map first, and then I'll try and go into the middle of it. What are you? Ooh, see, I died there. I don't know what killed me. That's okay. So even in endgame, I mean, if you're a standard player, like a normal player and not some like super sweat, odds are you're gonna die. Eventually, you're going to die. You lose some XP, you get back on your feet, and you keep it going. One thing that's important to know is that if you use aura skills or skills that reserve something after you die, you will have to reset them. It's chaos damage. This is a risky one because I struggle with chaos damage, and I just gave monsters more chaos damage. I may have just made this map unplayable for me, but I have 0% XP, which means I'm not losing anything by dying. So some of the aura skills, for example, determination is a popular one. It gives you more armor, which again gives you more physical damage reduction. We talked about armor earlier. Precision gives you more accuracy and crit chance, so that's for damage. And then grace gives you more evasion, which is more chance to evade, not dodge, evade attacks. I might have bricked this map for myself with chaos damage. I might not be able to complete this map. We'll see. I just need to kill things before they can hit me or not get hit. Ooh, that's a good one. Which I have a ranged character, so if I can keep them from getting near me, I can handle that. Ooh. So we're just finding currency all over the place now. Those things were called altars. Again, they're a mechanic. You'll learn about the mechanics as you go. They're also making an update to the game coming up. One of the new things. Oh, yeah, that's tough. He has a bubble. I can't hit him from distance. One of the big things that was a focus of this next coming patch is that they're trying to make things easier to understand. So, for example, let's see if we can find one. So this guy has a mod, Temporal Bubble, Hasted, and Berserker. What those mean is anybody's guess. People have figured it out online. You know, sometimes you can guess like Hasted. There's an aura called Haste, so he's fast. He's faster. Temporal Bubble is obviously the bubble around him, but what does it do? We don't know. So one of the things that they're doing with this next coming patch is they're making those mods easier to understand. So instead of saying something like Hasted, it'll say has increased movement speed, has increased attack speed. I'm just gonna jump into a different map. That was a good find anyways. Actually, you know what? I got 2 portals and nothing left to lose. I'm just gonna run it. I'm just gonna run it.
My mana is gone.
Why do all these random numbers keep calling me? Let's see. Gain 100% of physical damage is extra chaos. Oh, that killed me. Yeah, all right. That map's a little too difficult for me now. I might have hurt myself with that chaos damage. One thing I wanted to do, take a look at. I have some modifiers on my flasks. Like this one has used when charges reach full. So if I move this over here, and then I have this one used when an adjacent flask is used. So if this one triggers, it will trigger this. How much does that actually give me for chaos res? I go positive, so I won't be negative when I use that flask. I don't even know what I picked up. 10 fragile I don't know what fragile regrowth is. There's some mechanics in this game I've never heard of. There's a lot in this game, but you don't, again, if I'm not worried about it, you don't think you have to. Let's try another map. Vulnerability, physical damage is fire, increased accuracy rating, spell damage prevented. Okay, we can do that one. So again, I'm reading the modifiers to make sure I can do it. And then we're gonna go for it. Because if it has modifiers that don't work with your character, it's not worth running. Almost died there. Ha! You see that? So these mods come with an upside and a downside. This is takes 600 chaos damage per second during any flask effect. I'm not going to be able to do that. So I'm going to do this. That one's crazy. Maybe we will get into what divination cards do. Because that one I picked up is kind of a unique case in which you don't need to understand much about it. See, my character is very fast. Ooh, what is that? Empowered elements. See, I don't know what that mod does. Empowered elements, I couldn't tell you. I feel like it probably, just based off the name, might make him do more elemental damage. He just walked up and slapped me in the mouth. He hit me with that Will Smith. Yeah, defenses and offenses can be hard to balance if you're new to the game. I would say prioritize defense. Prioritize defense until you're so good at killing things that they might not be able to touch you. Oh, dude, I don't know what he is, but I cannot kill him. They're also changing the way that rare monsters kind of work. They're changing the mods they can have. They're not making them so hard. And he's not a boss. He's just a beefy monster.
I'm not up to that just yet.
Are they all dead? This guy is not. Ooh.
My mana is gone.
Wow, he was hard to kill. I don't know if that's going to be worth anything. I would say unique items are always going to be good to pick up. They are trying to make more of a focus in the upcoming patch on making uniques more exciting to find, because there's a lot of uniques that people don't really care about. Let's finish running this map. We can also talk about loot filters in a bit as well. Arena. So we have a boss room here. Let's go in and find out if we can kill this boss real quick. Oh, it's Kitava. Kitava, this is a copy of the end game boss. It's a pretty fun fight. Oh man, I got slapped. I got slapped. It's okay. So maybe we will talk about these. And what is this? Extractor Mentis? Not worth anything. Not worth anything. Yeah, we'll go through that. All right, so divination cards, these things here. If you collect all of them, they will give you whatever prize is on the card. So like this one called the Catalyst, if I have 3 of this card, I can trade these 3 cards for what it says on it, a Vol Orb. Some of them are very less direct. This one says the Void. This is one of the most loved and hated ones. This card can award any item in the entire game. I'm sure there's videos online of people pulling out some crazy stuff that we're not too interested in. Most of the time, you're going to get some doo-doo out of it. But you go to this NPC, there's a couple, I think there's 2 NPCs you can trade div cards to, divination cards to. You put the card stack in, so like, let's say I had 3 of them, they would all be in one stack, same thing, I just send them over, trade. Actually, we got a Chaos Orb, that's not the worst thing we could have got. Not by far. Some cards, as seasons change, are going to be disabled. This does not mean it rewards a prize called disabled. This means these cards are currently not in use in the game. These ones specifically I have here because these ones are coming back in the next patch, and I wanted to see what they do when they come back because they're changing the mechanic. But let's say League specific item, Twilight Temple, Breach item. Do we have any that like... Oh, the Tabula Rasa we talked about, the leveling unique, the one with the 6 white sockets that just looks like you're wearing I don't know, a bed sheet or something. There is a divination card that drops in the main story, actually, towards the end of the main story. And if you collect 9 of them, you can trade them for a free Tabula Rasa. This one, same thing, tabula rasa, but it's going to be corrupted, which means it'll have a corrupted modifier, or maybe 2. There is a way to double corrupt things, but you cannot do that with the Vol Orb that we were talking about. So I'm going to just build up this map real quick. Oh no. Oh. Totems, movement speed. Cannot leech from monsters. So this is a good example for my build. Is I leech, which means when I deal damage, I take back health and I take back mana. You can leech either of the two, but a lot of the reason I stay alive is because while I'm doing damage, I'm gaining health. So this one, cannot leech from monsters, is not going to be good for me. Let's try again. More monster life, impale on hit, reduced effective non-cursed aura from skills. So that one does affect me just enough. I have issues on this build with accuracy because I use a unique item called crystallized omniscience. End game stuff I'm not going to explain, but I have issues with accuracy, which is why I run an aura called precision. This one here, because it adds accuracy, so it helps me make sure I'm not missing my arrows. There is no real aiming. Like, you're gonna point your mouse in the general direction of things, but you don't have to be super accurate. It's not like aim is skill or anything like that. But you do have, based off your accuracy level, a chance to hit. And that chance to hit is just like it sounds. It's your chance to hit the enemy. Personal vulnerability. This one I can do. This one I can do. So these monsters are going to have a lot of life, because see, it says monsters gain 46% of their maximum life as extra maximum energy shield. That is a hard mod. It might not sound like a lot, but their life is, you know, 150% of what it would be. Or 146, whatever it said. So they're going to be very hard to kill. Well, maybe not for me. Some of them. We'll find some. There's always some tough... Like that guy took a couple extra hits. If you guys are wondering why my character is changing sizes, that has to do with that belt I showed earlier, where when I kill things, I am taking the mods from them. Oh, there he is. There he is. Okay, let's run up this way real quick. Right, swiftly. But yeah, as you go, you're going to learn more about the game once you start playing it. It's really not that difficult. There is a little bit of stuff to keep track of, but it's nothing crazy. There's a lot of mechanics, but all of the mechanics, for the most part, are fairly simple, with a few exceptions. But those aren't stuff that you typically have to worry about until the end of the game. Now, there's the boss. I don't know if I want to try the boss just yet. I'm going to try and finish the map. Another thing they're doing with the new season coming up is they're trying to encourage people to clear the map first to boost their chance for rewards on what's known as influenced maps. I won't talk about why, but they're trying to get people in the habit of playing the map first and then doing the boss last, because that's the way they intended it to be done. But they're incentivizing that with a chance for better rewards with certain mechanics. So, it's a practice we're going to get into. And for me, I also benefit because I am stealing mods from these guys. So when I work my way back there... I might be even stronger. Ooh, look at all them blacksmith's whetstones. These are all currency. We're going to take them. And we're gonna go down this way. So you guys have seen a lot of these little altar things. I'm just gonna say briefly, they revive the monsters that are in them. The monsters that died in them and the monsters that died in the other ritual altars will come back. I can't click this one. Did we do that one already? No, there's no way we did. It's glitched. We found a glitch. Let me in. All right, moving on. All right, so I cleared the edges of the map. I'm gonna go run through the middle.
My mana is gone.
So this one we're gonna do. If anybody is wondering the name of the skills that I use the skills Lightning Arrow and Barrage. Increase curses you inflict are reflected back to you. I don't know if I want that. And above just status. Yeah, we're gonna do it. It's gonna be tough. But our goal is going to be to stay alive anyways. More risk, more rewards. Name of the game. Risk assessment. Figure out how much you can and can't do, and then you're bound to make the most rewards you can. Just going to spiral my way in here. I don't think we're going to have any particularly hard monsters left. That dude was big. Certain maps also drop the same way certain maps and certain bosses can drop unique hideouts. They can also drop unique rewards. The divination cards that we talked about, there are some that only drop from certain maps. 50,000 to armor. That's a lot of armor. Holy crap. It's dropping just that boss is going to be tough. We're beefing the boss up for more rewards. And then we're going to see what we can't do. So not only does he going to have 46% more life as energy shield, he's also going to have a lot more armor and evasion, which means he is going to be hard to kill. And when we hit him, we're also going to curse ourselves, which I am not curse immune, so it's a downside. It's a risk that I'm going to try and take because, I mean, worst case, we've basically cleared the map. We just have to deal with the boss now. Ooh, we got something special here. Modifiers to item quantity affect the amount of rewards. I forget which Polaric Invitation is. I think that's one of the end game bosses. Or it's one of the guardians to the end game bosses. I can't remember. It has to do with the boss called the Eater of Worlds. Or not Eater of Worlds. God, I'm drawing a blank. I'm drawing a blank. We got a lot of these. I hear my dog crying at the door. I'm gonna open the door and let her in. Give me 1 sec. What's wrong? You want the door open? I'll leave it cracked, okay? You can come in and out. You can come in and out. You brought a toy? You brought a toy? She wanted to see me, ain't that sweet? Good dogs. For those that don't know, I have 9 dogs. I live with 9 dogs. Technically, I only have 2, but I live with 9 dogs. And since my house burned down last month, we all live in I won't say tiny trailer, but it's an okay sized trailer. So all of the dogs live with us in there. Yo, it's DJ. Yo, what is up? What's up, Mr. Kai Rule? This can't be quality, can it? Item is not a map. Isn't it a map? Is it not considered a map? Hoping the best, friend. Thank you. Been doing pretty well. Hoping the best for you as well. For those that don't know, this is DJ KaitoCree. He runs a podcast slash radio show. I listen to it like a radio show, but it's technically a podcast, I guess. Do you call it a podcast or do you call it a radio show? Either way, it's a really cool show. It's really fun. One of my favorite segments they do are "What Are You Vibing To?" in which they ask the guests on the show, as well as the host will be like, "Here's the songs that I've been listening to for this week or for the last few days." It's a really fun segment. I really do enjoy that one. He also does things like trivia. Like it's a really fun place to be. It's over on Mixcloud. If you guys have Mixcloud, even if you don't, maybe you should download it. But go check it out. It's called the Retro Future Podcast. Thank you all. I'm doing a podcast. So you do call it a podcast. That's becoming a radio show. Yes. It's a lot of fun to listen to. It's like morning radio, but it's not bad. But it's not bad. What do we got on here? Curse with Temporal Change, Nuke Bosses. We can do that one. Oh no! You got auto modded. I am so sorry. Hold on. You got auto modded. I'm gonna see if I can't damn, yeah, I have links prohibited in the channel. Is there a way I can... I will post it either on here or on Facebook. I'll post a link to it as well. 63 viewers. You guys are loving Path of Exile today, huh? Loving Path of Exile today. I'm happy to see. This is a game that I play quite a lot, so I'm glad. Maybe it's because it says where to start for beginners. Maybe there's a lot of people out there that like the way this game looks or like watching it, but think it's too much to play. So I hope I did some justice in explaining it earlier to new players. I hope I didn't overwhelm you guys or put too much on the table. I gotta have you back on the show. You're doing mad good on Twitch. I'm not on Twitch. I'm on YouTube. You're on YouTube right now. Woo, sheesh. Woo! Okay, this map is a little beefier than I thought it was gonna be. Yeah, I haven't officially been on the show yet, but I've been participating from chat. Dude, why is this map? Why is it spicy? Why is it spicy? No, it's Rogue Exiles. These are some of the unique enemies I was talking about earlier. Sheesh. This map is a hefty boy. Free money. Drops 5 additional map currency items. Yeah, who cares about your armor? I'm not doing physical damage. I'm doing elemental damage. That's something to consider as well, is that the same way you have armor and evasion and these basic stats, monsters do as well. Sheesh. Would you ever play Diablo 2? I loved it, but I get confused. I might. I used to play Diablo a lot. I don't know if it was Diablo or Diablo 2 a long time ago. It was on Xbox 360, though. So maybe it was Diablo and not Diablo 2. But, dude, that game was fun. We're just going to keep going around for now. This map is a little bit of a chonker. Or at least it seemed like it was. Maybe it's just the Rogue Exile. Maybe just that first stretch was crazy. This game has a lot of stuff, but again, most of these things are simple. An orb of unmake me. An orb of unmake me. God, those enemies, those unique enemies are a little bit hefty. All these things floating around me, by the way, they're called charges. They do different things. Maybe I'll explain them a little bit as well, but the effects you see around me are either auras or charges or mobs that I've picked up from enemies. Woo, I almost died there. Let's go fight this boss. Ooh, that was a little easy. He got folded. He should have scrambled like an egg before he got folded like an omelet. That's it. We have 18 monsters left in this map. Typically speaking, once you're underneath 50, it's up to you whether or not the reward of the map is worth it. You don't have to kill every monster in every map. It's not a requirement. I mean, like you saw earlier with that map, that was a little bit too difficult for me. You don't even have to finish half of the map. You can quit the map whenever you want to. We got some maps here. Alleyways. I'm not really a fan of these maps. Pier map. If Pier map is the one I think it is, I like to think of maps that I like to play. Something like Alleyways is going to have a lot of twists and turns and might be a little bit longer. Might take me a little bit longer to get through. So I like to play the maps that I'm faster with for, like Mesa map. That's a good one. Let's pull this out here. Minus 20 to monster steal power on frenzy charges on hit. That's fine. I steal them back. Avoid poison, impale, and bleeding. So monsters have a 50% chance to avoid poison, impale, and bleeding. I do none of those. So I don't care about that mod. And then chain 2 additional times, 25% monster damage. Curse with elemental weakness. That's fine, because then if we run into an altar that's, you know, reflecting curses, we don't have to worry about it. It's qualityed. Let's just hit it with an elk. Make it a rare. These are orbs of alchemy. You're going to see me use them a lot. They just make a normal item a rare item. These ones make a normal item a magic item. These ones add another mod. Let's say you've got a magic item, but it doesn't have all the mods it could. And these ones make magic items rare items. Those are probably the basic ones. And this deletes all mods. Yeah, it looks like a good one. Pure map. You can also, so you have all these like flips and switches on here. And all these options as well. These are just additional things you can add to your map. So I don't have to add this. This map could be easier. When you see all those enemies that burst out of nowhere in flames, that's because I have this selected. And I like to make maps a little bit harder. Again, the more risk you take, the more reward the map is going to pay out. Whether or not that's worth it is up to you. Whether or not you can do it is up to you. We are going to get into this, I guess. There's also other items you can use to make maps more different. There's what's called fragments. Sacrifice at midnight, sacrifice at dusk. These are all fragments. If you put one of these in the map device, this thing, in these other slots, let's say we have the map here. If you put them in the other slots, it'll add 5% increased quantity of items. However, if you have all 4 fragments, it's its own map. It's these ones specifically, the sacrifice fragments, are for a boss called Etsiri. One of the easier bosses in the game to do. Maybe give it a try after you hit, not right when you finish the game, but once you're at like tier 6 maps, yellow maps, I'd say maybe give it a whirl, see if you can do it. Then we have scarabs. Scarabs, their rarity is not normal, magic, rare, and unique. Theirs is the quality of the metal that it is. So we have rusted, polished, Gilded, and then there's one tier above this called Winged. I don't have any right now. They're a little bit rare. You can buy them. These also make the map harder, but they add things to them. So like Gilded Ambush Scarab. Those boxes that you see me click that spawn a bunch of monsters, those are strong boxes. Once you kill all the monsters in the strong boxes, a bunch of loot will appear around it. Whether or not it's worth it, it's who's to say. Harbingers are like summoning monsters. They will summon little minions. When you kill all those minions, the Harbinger will drop a bunch of currency items, like currency fragments. So like, what do we have for shards? So we have exalted shards and exalted orbs. When you collect a full stack, which for this is 20 exalted shards, you will be rewarded by having a full exalted orb. Most currency have shards. Some of them are less rare, like alchemies are pretty common. Alchemy shards are worth less, but if you were to collect 20 of them, you'd get an elk, I guess. Chaos shards to chaos orbs, so on and so forth. And for that big item that I said most people will never see, there are mirror shards as well. Most of the basic currencies will have shards. Chromes, fusings, and jewelers, the ones you use to modify your items, like the sockets on your items, do not. Then we have some very niche currency. Engineer's Orb improves the quality of a strong box. The more quality something has, the more chance it has to drop items. Orb of Binding. This is kind of interesting because they won't give this to you early game. You won't see this until maybe the end of the acts when you already have items that have 4 or more links. And I think it would be really, really useful for beginners to have because it says upgrades a normal item to a rare item with up to 4 linked sockets. So let's say you picked up a normal pair of gloves. You could just hit it with one of those and it could have 4 linked sockets and a bunch of mods. I think that would be very powerful if it was earlier in the game. However, they're not there. What other currencies can we go over? Yes. For your skill tree, when you level up, you gain a point, you spend a point. These points are, for the most part, not changeable unless you use what's called an Orb of Regret. Grants a passive skill refund point. So you would just right-click on it, and you see I have refund passive here. You would just go to, let's see, what's something I can refund real quick, just for an example. This one here gives me more chaos resistance. You would click refund, click that, and refund it. And now you have a point that you could spend, you know, anywhere if you wanted to. I'm not going to change what I have, obviously. I'm waiting on one more level to get this next one. So as you can see, as you progress, you can kind of plan out your route, plan out the way you want to go. So like if I knew I wanted to go this way, I can, as I'm leveling up, just follow the path. At the beginning of each league, however, you will be given a free run to respec everything without spending any currency. I forget what they call it. The Book of something. Book of Regret or something. 2,000 plus hours in, never seen a mirror. Yeah. Tom has been playing this game a lot longer than me. Most players are never going to see a mirror. I wouldn't worry about him. There's a lot of stuff in this game I'm not going to explain because until your end game, it's not going to matter. And by the time you get there, you're probably going to have heard about it. But you get a full respec, which means you can remove all of these points and start entirely over. F it. We're getting into ascendancies. I didn't think we were going to get this far, but you guys are such great learners. On top of your skill tree, you have what's called ascendancy. There's a specific area in the game that you go to,
I'm not up to that just
which is a dungeon type place, the Aspirants Plaza. You will unlock this in Act 3, I think it is. There's one in Act 3 and one in Act 8. Labyrinth activation device. So this will be the first one. As you play through the actual story, see Act 1, Act 2, it's telling you where to find these little orb things. There is going to be what's called a trial of ascendancy. It's just it's a little tough area in a map with, you know, traps and some monsters, and you get to the end of it and there's a plaque. You click on the plaque and it'll activate whatever one of these you do. So like the first one is in a place called the Lower Prison in Act 1. When you have all of these, you can run this labyrinth. The next one, Act 6, Act 7, Act 8. So there's more as you go through the story. We won't talk about the Eternal Labyrinth right now. F it, maybe we will. So you cannot run these until you have found all of these trials throughout the acts and solved them. Don't worry, you can go back through the acts at any time if you missed these later on. How did that survive the mods? High user on this channel. Sorry for the bots. But yeah, as you find these, you'll unlock the ability to do these, and as you play through them, you'll get what's called ascendancy points. Ascendancy is similar to the skill tree, but they're a lot bigger, and you can't refund them with a single orb. It takes 5 orbs if you want to, 5 orbs of regret if you want to respec any of these, but these have really big benefits. So there are smaller nodes that don't do as much, but these big nodes can be very, very big. So like this one, skills fire 2 additional projectiles. Since I have a bow and arrow build, I chose this ascendancy for these. Depending on your build, each class has 3 different ascendancies. So you have your class, which will give you the general idea of your build, and then you have your ascendancy, which will make it a little bit more specific. I think that's the easiest way to explain it. So for me, since I use a bow skill and I like having, you know, more projectiles means I hit more things, I have this one. Skills fire 2 additional projectiles, which isn't easy to get anywhere else in the game. There are a couple of sources that can do it, but this is the easiest way to get that. I wish I could show you. I can show you some of the other ascendancies. Let me go to Path of Building, which is that tool we talked about earlier for planning out builds. And like in the case of the build that I'm planning, I'm going a champion ascendancy, which is a duelist class. These are the 3 ascendancies. They are Slayer, Gladiator, Champion. They all specialize in different things. However, Champion, I chose because he's a little bit more defensive. I wanted to make sure that with a melee build, since I have to get close range, that things aren't just going to be killing me super easy, because then I wouldn't be able to get very far. So, what's an easy way to explain this? So this one, for example, you have 20 fortification. Fortification increases your physical damage reduction. I think it also... Let me verify before I say something wrong. Oh, so you have 1% less damage taken from hits per stack of fortification. So there are some ways in the game to get fortification. However, this one just gives you 20. You permanently have 20 fortification. We can talk about charges a little bit as well, because fortification almost works similar, in which there's mods on items and stuff like that that will say, you know, when you kill an item, kill a monster, gain fortification. Or I don't know if that's the, you know, the exact mod, but that's the general idea of how it works. And then obviously fortification, since it increases your defenses, makes you stronger. Charges can do something similar. The 3 main types of charges are endurance charges, power charges, and frenzy charges. There are some specific, like, certain build only charges, like this one, Gladiator over here, has something called where is it, challenger charges, I think they're called. I don't know much about them. Yeah, plus 10 to maximum challenger charges, 25% chance to gain a challenger charge when you kill a rare unique enemy. So let's see, I don't even know off the top of my head what challenger charges do. And see, this may look super technical, but this is just for helping figure out your build. You know, are you fortified? Yes, I'm going to be fortified with my new build. Do you have onslaught? Yes, I'll have onslaught with my new build. So you can customize and get a preview of what your build looks like in this window over here on the left. I don't see challenger charges on here, but no, that's how specific something like challenger charges can be, is that it's not popping up on this, because this is the stuff that most people are going to worry about. Specific builds might have more to worry about. Some builds might have less to worry about. But power charges, frenzy charges, and endurance charges. Let's talk about what they do. Endurance charges increase. Actually, can I show you right from the configuration? It's not gonna tell me if I hover. Okay, I wanted to know the exact wording, but frenzy charges are more damage. Here, let's look up the charges. I want to give you guys the exact information. I don't want to just wing these. There's also excellent resources free online. There's Path of Exile fandom, Path of Exile DB, POEDB, Path of Exile database. So I don't want frenzy. I just want frenzy charges. The Frenzy Charge buff. Players gain more damage and increased attack and cast speed for each Frenzy Charge they have. So that's the wording of it. That's how they actually say it. I knew it was attack speed. I wasn't sure how much damage it is, though. I don't know how much it is per. Does it tell us how much per? I don't have the exact number here. But there's those. Endurance charges give you more physical damage reduction. Less damage taken, I think, is the actual wording of it. And then power charges, I believe, just increase your attack damage and your critical strike chance. Okay, so PoE Wiki might actually be a better source to learn from. Oh, it's just critical strike chance, which will boost your attack damage if you're doing crits, unless you have that node that we were looking at earlier that says you can't deal crits. But again, that's something very specific. Players gain increased critical strike chance for each power charge they have. Here, let's see if PoE Wiki will give us the actual numbers on frenzy charges. Oh yeah, okay, so per frenzy charge it's 4% increased attack and cast speed, and then 4% increased damage. Well, more damage. More is... that's too technical. Sometimes the wording of things can mean different things. That specifically does have an additional meaning. However, don't worry about it. If you're a new player, don't worry about it. And then endurance charges is 1% less damage taken, right? As the exact amount. 4% to all elemental resistances per endurance charge. So let's say you lack elemental resistance and you get hit by elemental damage a lot, but you generate endurance charges somehow, you can bridge that gap. 4% additional physical damage reduction per endurance charge. Yes, so 4%. So you get 4% less elemental damage taken and 4% less physical damage taken per endurance charge you have. The maximum number of charges at the start for every build is 3. There are nodes on the tree that can, let's say you want to specialize in certain kinds of charges. There's nodes like this all around the tree. This one is for power charges, +1 to maximum power charges, +1 to maximum frenzy charges. There are even modifiers that say +1 to minimum of these charges, which means you always have at least one. There's so many ways to generate charges. I don't want to get into them all, but typically it'll say, you know, gain a frenzy charge on hit or on kill or stealing them from monsters that already have them. God, we are covering like 20 times more than I thought we were going to get through today. I thought I was just going to go through a basic little itty bitty thing. Oh, my game is lagging. Oh, I was like, where'd my other map go? It's in the thing still. So if you leave a map in here, typically speaking, it's not going to disappear on you. In case you're ever worried about leaving an item somewhere, if you leave an item in your crafting bench, it's not going to disappear on you. If you walk away from it, you can just be like, oh, you know, I forgot this over there. Let me go get it. Which happens to me a lot. This is the map I thought it was. I like this map because it's fairly open. So for me, open maps are better. Since I do ranged attacks, I can hit things from much farther away since I don't have to worry about things like walls or hallways in the way. So I very much like open maps. They're very good for the flow of gameplay for me. Little things you can think about later on in the game. These are strong boxes, if you wanted a better example. So even though I have all these layers of defenses, you will still see me doing things like dodging. Ooh. One thing I do want to say is that what I'm about to do is very complicated, and I don't want to give you guys bad information. This is a mechanic in the game that is incredibly complex to the point where I have bookmarked a cheat sheet. I have bookmarked a cheat, so I want him in research. Can I move him to research?
If you think I'm going to say or do anything to further your pathetic cause, you are sorely mistaken.
This whole mechanic has to do with finding out intel, like building a conspiracy board, basically. This is the Charlie Day conspiracy board in a nutshell. All these lines are very confusing. This whole mechanic is very confusing. I'm not even going to try. He's an intervention. I want him in research. And this guy's name is Chimeria. So like this, again, this mechanic is so complicated. I use a cheat sheet for it. Chimeria. Time-worn item. Harbinger orbs. So I can either have him in T or F.
You're my kind of murderer, Exile. My favorite part's when their head first hits the ground.
Where is he now, Chimeria?
Wasn't my head.
Oh, he's not even on the board yet. Oh god, this mechanic is very confusing. Please do not worry about this.
That way.
Okay.
Just like the old days.
Ooh, okay, that's kind of cool. I didn't know he had his own div card.
I'm not up to that just yet. My mana is gone.
And when you get to maps, don't worry about how fast you're going. You can take as much time or as little time as you need to. For the sake of being efficient, I like to have a little bit of a faster build, but not all builds are fast. Some builds are really slow, but deal insane amounts of damage. There are builds that are specifically designed just to one-shot bosses. So they'll have a friend run the map leading up to the boss, and then they'll run into the boss room. This game is, like, you can play it any way you want to. Your experience is almost entirely customizable. Almost being the keyword there. There are obviously some things that you can't do.
There is no deeper cruelty than caging a wild animal. The cage beckons.
Alright, this guy here. Tora. This girl here, sorry. Tora. She's not really great. She's not really great. She could be in literally any slot and I wouldn't care.
A huntress who doesn't know her environment is a dead huntress. I didn't plan on
Intelligence
dying
per
today,
turn.
so how about I tell you what I've learned here instead? Feel confident.
That whole mechanic is just very, very involved. A lot of people, I mean, even Tom, who plays for 2,000 hours, doesn't really mess around with it. It's something that I want to get into eventually because it does have some powerful rewards if you can figure out and understand it all. But it's, again, very niche. Very niche. Very engaging, thank you. I'm trying my best. If I can get new people to join Path of Exile, make teammates, make friends, guild mates, you know, it's what we do it for. We're gonna do the map boss last again. We're gonna try and beef him up as much as possible and then go take him down for some fat rewards. Well, that dropped nothing good. So we're already basically at the end of the map. Let's go find that boss.
I'm not up to that.
We'll
just
pick these
yet.
up just because we can. We haven't really found a lot of
Mana is
rewards.
gone.
Haven't really found a lot of rewards. Where is it? Oh, he's up here. That little door icon on the map. By the way, you can have your mini map one of two ways. You can have it in the top right corner if you want it up here, which I don't prefer. I like to have it here so I can focus on the gameplay and just quickly check the map in front of me. I think a lot of people like it that way. Oh, it's this one. Oh, this sucks. Oh, no! Although we got some good rewards from that. Let's go back and collect them. We did kill the boss, but we died at the very end there. We died at the very end. That's okay. This little skill I'm using to get around, to move faster, is called dash. There's a lot of movement skills, movement-based skills in the game. So I'm using a movement flask and a movement skill just to be extra fast. Fast as fuck, boy, type of thing. Oh, is this where it was? Yeah, cool. I will say, unlike a lot of RPGs, there are chests in this game, like loot chests and you know, treasure chests, stuff like that. There's little barrels that can drop items, but 99% of the time, they are not worth anything. Let's go back to town, shall we? Bring it around town. Go back to our hideout, not town, sorry. Boom, boom, boom. I'll teach you guys what veiled modifiers are in just a second here. So we'll move these over here. Ah, shoot. Maps, we want to move this. This is a Conqueror map. Elder Guardian map, I believe, actually. Not Conqueror. Precinct map. I'm just going to try and stay organized as I loot. As I said, you know, I like to keep my stuff kind of neat if I can. We have another divination card, which we talked about earlier. I have a stack of 2, so I'm going to put that stack of 2 in here. I'm going to trade them, and it's going to give me a scarab. Oop. We'll talk a little bit about veiled items. So we mentioned briefly about the crafting bench and all of these things that you can discover and learn as you play. Not only can you find little like areas that say crafting recipe that you just click on and you learn it for free. There are, oh, not Cassie, where is she? June. This person here has a modifier called Veil. So you see these weird little squibbly lines on the bottom of this. That is a veiled modifier. You said all the currency items that people use to trade with each other are also used for crafting. You also said the Mirror of Calandra is a currency item that almost no one finds. Is the Mirror of Calandra used for crafting? So I originally earlier said that we weren't going to go over it just because I didn't think we were going to be that far. I was like, yeah, it's not important. You'll never see one. The Mirror of Calandra has this very busted effect of copying a rare item. It makes an exact copy. So let's say you get really good at crafting. Let's say you like crafting and you want to play this game for the crafting, which is something that I'm trying to learn. There's a lot to crafting. There's a ton of stuff for crafting. But let's say you end up with this really, really crazy item that's worth an insane amount of money. You can make a copy of it and then sell the copy. Or sell the original and then keep it yourself. People do something called mirror servicing. Since the mirror's ability is to copy a rare item, people will say, hey, give me a mirror and give me a fee of X amount of currency, and I will copy this item and give it to you. And that's what mirror servicing is. Mirrors are crazy. So for finding new crafting bench modifiers, These little squiggly lines you bring to June and you click unveil, and it's going to give you some options. If this bar is white, it means you don't have it. Which, these aren't really good items. I'd only pick them up because they're veiled, and I might get some good modifiers that I don't have yet. Like this one. See how this is white? I don't have this yet. 21% increased global critical strike chance, and 29% critical strike multiplier if you shattered an enemy recently. So now, new crafting recipe unlocked. So now I can craft that at any time. Well, not necessarily the same values, but almost any time from my crafting bench on an item, as long as it has a free spot for it. 137% increased physical damage, 25% chance to impale enemies on hit. That's really good for the build that I'm trying to make next league. However, your crafting recipes, things aren't shared between standard and league. Standard and league are separate until the end of the league, in which case the league moves into standard. So every time you do league, you are starting over. I already have those. Nothing exciting there. Yeah, so we got one new mod out of that, but that mod will now be in my crafting bench. So let's see, critical. Here it is right here. Nope, that's not it, actually. Here it is right here. Here's the one we just unlocked. We can now craft this on any item, provided we have an open slot for it. So that's one of the other ways you can gain crafting recipes. What else did I say? There was another mechanic I said I was going to talk about in a brief way. I don't want to go over Delirium. I don't want to go over any of the exotic currency. We're not going over a lot. Oh, another good leveling unique. The Paranda Signet. And the reason is because you get 2% increased experience gain, which helps you level up faster when you're in the main story. So I like to hold on to a couple of these in case I ever level something in standard. Why do I have all of these scarabs? I remember why I have all these scarabs. This has to do with the new thing coming up. We got a lot of rusted reliquaries. For those wondering, they're adding I didn't want to talk about vendor recipes. Vendor recipes get complicated. There are secret recipes in the game. I mean, a lot of them aren't so secret anymore. Players figure them out, and then you're good to go. For example, I'm holding on to these. I'm not actually going to make the trade. But one such example is that you go to a vendor and you go to sell something. In this case, we're going to use oils, which we're not going to talk about what they do because it's a very late game, but this is just an example for vendor recipes. If you sell 3 of the same kind of oil, it will give you 1 oil of the next tier up. There's a few different things that have that type of vendor recipe. There's a lot of secret recipes in the game. Another example is, let's say I have a gem and it's too high level for me. Let's see, was that level 18? Yeah, Malevolence. Malevolence level 18. This is the currency we use to remove all the mods from an item. So another example of a vendor recipe is you sell a gem of any level and an orb of scouring. So this is level 18, and it will sell you back. It will give you, as a reward, the same gem with 1 less level. And there's a bunch of those in the game. The one they're adding to the game is similar to the oil one I just showed you, in which whenever you trade 3 of the same type of scarab, it's going to be these things here. When you sell 3 of the same one, it will give you 1 of the next tier up. So I'll get 3, so I have 10 here, 10 rusted. If I sell those, it will give me 3 polished, and if I sell 3 polished, it will give me 3 gilded. This does not include winged scarabs, but that's part of the new league. That's one of the things that I'm excited for. I'm going to be trying to make some profit off of these and keeping a couple because gilded, as you can imagine, as they're more rare, are worth more. So let's see, we have a gilded shaper scarab. That's not a good example. Gilded harbinger scarab is worth 5 to 10 chaos. Now, do we have a rusted harbinger scarab? No, we don't. What's an example we have? Ambush? Yeah, okay, so the rusted ambush scarab is worth 2 chaos. A gilded ambush scarab is worth 5, 7, 12 chaos here. So like obviously the more rare they are, the more money they're worth. And since I'll be able to sell some of these and get some of these higher quality ones, I'm going to try and sell these, get the good ones, and then sell some of the good ones if I don't keep them for myself, which the reliquary ones I might. 50% more unique items found, and since uniques are they're trying to make uniques more exciting to find and giving you better uniques just whenever they drop, these are gonna be really cool to use. Okay, we're running another map. This is I'd say probably 90% of end game gameplay is running maps to help you find gear to level up.
I'm not up to that just yet. My mana is gone.
All of the maps are going to replicate an area you're going to find. Oh, 2 altars. Inflict fire, cold, and lightning exposure on. And wow, 3 altars in the same area. Talk about rare. So these altars, for example, they'll offer you 2 choices with the pro and a con. I'm dying because I'm standing on that ground effect, which deals chaos damage. Ground effects are another thing. You'll learn about them in the game. I don't really want to explain them too much. Just like it sounds, they're an effect that stays on the ground. So enemies lose 6 flash charges every 3 seconds and cannot gain flash charges for 6 seconds after being hit. That would be really difficult for me. But final boss drops 4 additional currency items. This one, 18% chance for enemies to drop burning ground when hitting you, no more than once every 2 seconds. Basic currency items dropped by slain enemies have an 11 chance to be duplicated. So if it drops a currency item, it might be duplicated and it'll drop burning ground when they hit me. However, I'm immune to burning ground. So again, this is something we talked about earlier of finding things that have a pro and a con, where the con doesn't really apply to you. And then we have a third one here. That's crazy. Increased flash charges used. Yeah, we're gonna do it. These are really good mods to have right now. Four orbs of fusing, that's okay. Let's go back to this bridge. This is the way forward. 3 altars in the same area. That was a really good learning opportunity. Ooh! He just smacked me in the mouth. He said, ah. Sorry, we fast as fuck. All this caustic damage on the ground, this chaos damage on the ground. Is difficult for me because again my weakness is chaos res. Every build you make is going to have strengths and weaknesses.
I'm not up to that just yet. My mana is gone.
Ooh, oh, all of my things just triggered. That's crazy. This map is tough because of the ground effect. I think if it were just the monsters, as you see, if I run over it, I'm losing health. But I'm regenning a little bit, so it's not too bad. See, chaos damage, it's like a big weakness for me. We can talk about incubators. What just happened where all those items dropped? I also want to put a portal on this bridge. All those items that just drop because of something called incubators, and I'll explain those after this map. Let's take a look at the map mod, shall we? What are we dying to? Desecrated ground, which is tough for us, but that's not crazy. Monsters have 484% increased critical strike chance. That means they're almost constantly critting. These tower things are also very difficult to deal with. Heralds of the Obelisk. I don't know what Heralds of the Obelisk does too. So this is one of the, again, the big issue they're trying to fix is that things are not easy to understand. Now, if this had cannot leech from monsters, I don't know if I'd be able to do this map. Oh, I was so close to surviving that. Yeah, chaos damage is extremely tough for me. We have one portal left. We are getting quite a bit of stuff from this, though.
I'm not up to that.
The quant is good. And there it goes. We're making a sale. I'm giving up on this map. Someone's giving me 6 divines, which is more than we would make doing that map. They're buying my infinite leeching cluster jewel. Cluster jewels are... There's even more to the tree. We won't get into cluster jewels. Boom, 6 more divine. Easy clap. See, sales, I make more money from sales than I do from farming maps. 6 divs, yeah, that was my infinite leeching cluster jewel. There's a strategy, like I said, I leech, which means when I deal damage, I either gain life or mana or both. There's a strategy where while you're leeching, you gain additional damage. It's like 40% more damage while you're leeching. And then you make it so that the leech never stops. You're never on full life, so the leech will just keep going and going and going. So you just get a lot of extra damage for doing leech, and the leech never stops. That's what that cluster jewel is for. It's a build that I used to run. Not anymore. Delve is another thing. If you're someone that likes endless dungeons, there's a mechanic called Delve. So you don't even have to do maps. You could do anything. There's so many ways to play this game. Like, it has something to offer everybody, I am telling you guys. I picked these up because I like strand maps. They're nice and linear. I picked up another one earlier. Stacked decks. These are like a special type of divination card. These are fun to gamble with. We're gonna go here just so we can drop them without being in a map. And the thing is, or you know what, I won't drop them all, but I'll show you. Wow, that was a real good card to pull. These can spawn any divination card that's currently active in the game. So this one was actually a really good pull. A good way to know whether or not they're worth it is by using a loot filter, because eventually when you get to the end game, a lot of loot on the ground is not going to be worth picking up. So in UI, there is an option. Is it not in UI? Is it in game? Yeah, in game, there is item filters available to you. There are custom filters that you can download online and apply right to your game. Or you can make your own. There's a lot into making your own because, again, there's an insane amount of items. So I would just recommend either using the default one, or I use this one called Exhausta, who is one of the most famous players in the game. He's a really good crafter, so... What's going on? We're getting a lot of sales today. Getting a lot of sales today. What's your total liquid at now? 9 div? Plus all these chaos? See, I told you that should have sold. These are going for more than 4C. And I've had that for forever. trades on trades on trades. This is how we make money, my friend. Yeah, so for a loot filter, I'll kind of give you the idea with these. It's going to pop up. The loot filter knows this is good, so it's going to show it to me. However, if we do the same thing with these, looks like they're just disappearing. If I hold Alt, though, you can see they're still here. These two are just not worth the loot filter's time, so the loot filter won't show them to me. But these, I can pick up. Some people play the game by sitting in their hideout and trading for hours. Oh my god, that used to be me. I was having trouble with maps, and I was like, my build sucks. I can't get better unless I have more money in the game, which is never true. You can always grind out easier content to make more improvements and get more XP. But I was like, I'm never gonna get anywhere with this. And I was just sitting in my hideout for a very long time. And it's really funny because in an ad that I saw, I think it was for Path of Building, or it was for some sort of additional add-on service for Path of Exile. I opened up YouTube and got in the ad, sitting in your hideout again, Exile, while I was sitting on my hideout in one screen and on YouTube on another. You can literally sit here AFK. I can sit here and talk to you, and anybody can message me at any time. I could pull up, you know, the internet over this and leave this game running in the background. Eventually, AFK mode will be enabled, but it'll make a sound every time somebody messages you. Let's, that was a pretty good card to pull. I'm actually kind of glad we got that. Sitting in your hideout again, Exile? Shut up, you don't know me. You don't know me. You don't know what I got. Ooh. I didn't want to talk about Delirium, but we do have a Delirium mirror. So this is a Delirium mirror. Players call it Deli or Deli mirrors. Delirium can be applied when making a map, but regular maps will have a chance to drop these anyways. There's also a chance that you'll see these in the act. Very rare. What is going on? It's 2C. It's not worth my time of losing a portal if this map is beefy. Delirium makes the map a lot harder. It will randomly spawn enemies, but it'll be on a timer. When it's like this, when it just randomly spawns in a map, it's on a timer. Kill as many enemies as you can, and it'll give you extra rewards. When you're running into a map that you made with Delirium, the Delirium will be permanent. That's the easiest way to explain it. Oh, it's much harder. We did just get a very good card. If you're someone who enjoys economics, you can also play this game as a trader. Yeah, you can.
I'm not up to that just yet.
So random monsters are just going to keep spawning where we walk around. And we're going to try and go fast and get as many rewards as we can. Damn, he was beefy for no reason. We did see a Harbinger. I didn't explain it because I died. No, I didn't want to go in there. I didn't want to go in there. Let me out. Okay, so the Delirium is over. We didn't get a lot of rewards out of this. That's not really good. Because we died a couple of times, we wasted time, but when you see them in the game, it's a good idea to try and be as fast as possible. Just to get more rewards. We love more rewards here. The more money we make, the better, right? There are people, and this is kind of a skeezy way to play, it's not allowed by the game. They will ban you if they find out, who sell currency for real currency, like IRL currency. And there's some players who, while I cannot confirm that they make an actual living off of selling currency, for sure could. Like, we talked about how mirrors are super rare. Imagine how much money someone's making for a mirror. I think they're like $100 or something like that. The same way people would trade items in WoW for real currency, or RuneScape Gold for real currency. But it's not allowed in this game. It is against terms of service. You will get in trouble or banned. Is that it? This guy just messaged me again. He messaged me twice for it, so he must really want it. Well, we'll run in here. We're just gonna knock out this boss real quick. Big wombo damage against the boss, because I'm good like that. And we're gonna hop out. The Maven's Invitation are like boss rooms. We're not gonna get into those because, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of hard bosses and stuff like that, but like, you don't need to know about them all. You don't need to know about them all right now. Wait, almost have an Orb of Annulment. I never have annulments. Sulfur vents. Yeah, he wants that. I low-key wonder if we sat here how much currency we could make. But it seems like, I mean, especially since there's a new league starting, a lot of people are looking to buy new items and check new things and try stuff out. So you're going to see a lot more sales. Prices are also going to fluctuate heavily. Not a fan of those, but I am going to keep them just in case I run out of maps. We're going to remove the mods from this. Quality it. And then do this. That is going to be a tough boy. Just for the giant crit that they have. And extra physical damage is lightning. Let's do the same on this, shall we? That's tough. That one's tough. There are people in groups who spend their entire game time trading. Yeah. One of our guild leader actually has a service. I don't know if it's available only to guild members or not. Where if you have a lot of like high price items, but you can't be online a lot, because obviously if you're not online, you can't trade. He'll hold on to the items for you, sell them for you, and take a percentage. There's a couple of people in the game that do that, and that's just the entire way they play the game. Is they make money because they're online and they sell things for other people. It's a really cool thing to like. I will say, and something I do want to talk about, is that one of my favorite parts in this entire game is that all of the players are actually a part of the lore. Like, no, we don't all have names in the game. Like, we don't have items named after us and stuff like that. But, like, people know who the big players are in the game. Like, Exhaustive, for example. I use his loot filter. His name is in the game UI because I downloaded his loot filter. Empyrean, Zizaran. There's so many popular names, and they actually help to define the lore of the game. And since people who are really into doing those challenges, hardcore solo self-found, and get to design unique items, they get a say in what comes into the game, and as such are just as big a part of the lore. It's really, really cool when you think about it. Like, you can be like, oh, who's the best player in the game, you know, and names come to mind. Obviously there's no clear defined answer. There's people who are better than like all the big guys, but people don't know about them. Oof. This is something people do a lot. Remember we talked about vol orbs and corruption? People will tag an item and a vol orb, signifying that they're going to use the vol orb, and then they're going to post the outcome. This guy had a Death Rush Amethyst ring, and oh man, it turned rare, so he lost all the benefits to it. Rip. Occultist are Carly's Fanning Spiders. So someone's selling their, look, someone is selling their entire build. Here's the link to the POB, the tool we talked about to plan out your build, so if you wanted to preview the build before you bought it. And here's the price he's selling it for. Price 1 mirror or offers. I'm offering 9 div for it. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Tibbs Wealth. That's an item I've never seen before. It's green. It's a quest item, right? Oh, I'd assume give to Tibbs and Heist. Yeah, see, I wouldn't have known that. You can also, if you ever run into an issue, you could either, you know, message me if you care, if I'm online or something. We do have a community Discord. If you type !Discord, the link will pop up. I actually think I might have forgotten to refresh that link. But we do have a community Discord if you guys wanted to hop into there. Or you could hop right into Global and ask people. Just don't ask people what they're worth, what things are worth, because there's a meme in this game. It used to be, so we used to trade in X. X used to be worth more than Divine, but there was a really big change to the game that changed that. I won't get into it. But people used to tag things and be like, hey, does anybody have any idea what this thing is worth? And people would always be like 25x. It's worth 25x. They don't even care what it's worth. They'll just be like 25x. Now it's 25 div, but global chat is a weird place to be. Every once in a while, some entertaining stuff will happen. All right, we go again. We go again. We've been talking about the mechanics of this game for 3 hours. Just about.
My mana is gone.
Okay. Minus 45% to Chaos Res. I don't want that. Oh, this got hard. I knew I was gonna die there. Dang it. Got ambushed. Huh? I see caustic ground here, so I'm assuming I just took a big chaos hit and didn't realize. Again, caustic... Dude, chaos damage is a huge weakness for me. My other one weakness is that my hit chance is not maxed out. Oh my god. This thing is impossible. We might lose all of our portals here. You get 6 portals into any map. If you die, obviously you have to use another one. I do want to kill this Harbinger, though. Wow.
I'm not up to that just
This
yet.
increased evasion that I gave them from that altar is kind of tough to deal with.
My mana is gone.
Of fusion.
Why did I give them increased evasion? That's right, this is what Headhunter mods are for. Or if you had something on tree that said your hits can't be evaded, that'd be huge. We going fast now. Where's the boss on this map? Oh, probably back there, huh? Ah, almost died there as well. What are you? Oh, shoot. Another 3 div sale? Yo, we're making bread today. Flammability on hit. I bought those for like 30 chaos. You see how some people take their time to make sure that what they're buying is the same thing they asked for? Huh. We wasted a portal, but we gained 3 div. Works for me. This is called Abyss. Basically, we're going to be following it. And it's going to spawn monsters for us.
I'm not up to that just yet. My mana is gone.
$17 monsters remaining, but we do have a boss to kill. One singular monster spawn. That was weird. Just show you guys. Oh, I'll take those portal scrolls, actually. Oh, we're dropping sapped ground as we walk. All this stuff that doesn't appear on my loot filter is for a reason.
Desecrate our sanctum. This will not stand.
Yep. Those 2 bosses I'm not go... with... What happened? An unexpected disconnection occurred. Oh, no! Okay, well, the game is down. I'm glad we picked up that loot as opposed to trying to finish the map and then loot. Which is a strategy. You can finish the map and then go back and loot, but you know, let's say you only have one portal left, or you only have a couple of portals left, and you want to make sure you have enough. In really crazy maps, you are going to have so much loot that you're not going to be able to carry it all out, and then it's knowing what's worth things, prioritizing your time, but every time you die, you're losing the amount of loot that you could bring out. So being able to loot quickly as you go, which is also why an item filter is important, can be really, really important to making sure you, interesting. Can be really important to make sure you're making as much money as possible. Pardon me, I have a little granola bar for breakfast. My Sadir. My Sadir is another one of the nuts players in this game. Hey, I know that guy. Where is... What the hell's his name? Snapow. Snapow. Alright, so we're gonna watch this in the meantime while the server's down.
Meals are here. These are the meals I picked out this week from Home Chef, delivered right to my door.
This is how...
Very fresh.
How crazy some people are with this game.
Talking about all of the
He's
party
got
builds for the 320 Kalandra expansion.
all of this.
Now I'm gonna break my 320 videos up into two different kind of sections. Where one
This
of them
guy
is gonna be
makes
going
builds
over
for some of
kinda
the
give
best
my general
players in the
thoughts
game,
on where the state of
comes
the
up with
game
party
is. So we're gonna
compositions,
need a little bit of context on
figures
all
out
of these
strategies
builds,
for
and
the
I'm gonna have to
games.
level with
This
you
is how
guys.
serious
While I'm
it
gonna
is.
be releasing these builds, I'm not sure that there is going to be any content for you to be playing with all of these aforementioned builds, because in reality, in a 6-man or even 4 or 5-man, there's only really 2, maybe 3 choices of content you can do to make profit in current endgame PoE. First one being goblin hunting with a heavy focus on Legion and or Abyss, and the second one is going to be boxes farming using the enraged sextant and just going for cards. To me, those are really the 2 viable
If you're new to this
6-man
game and
MFE
you're hearing
strategies
jargon
that
and you
can
don't
employ.
understand
We
it,
don't know how
don't worry
good
about
or
it.
bad
It's
the
stuff
new
you don't need
goblins
to
are
know
gonna
to start
be.
the
They
game.
haven't really released any information on how that new
This
conversion
is all
system is going to
advanced.
work. But before the goblin
When he
hunting
says
strategy had a
goblins,
heavy
goblins are
reliance
not
on
like
getting some of those
green
Lunaris,
guys with
Solaris
pointy
touch
ears. They're
conversion,
what's
and
called
it could be
loot
the case that
goblins,
the
people
top
with a
end is
lot of
nerfed and they didn't really
modifiers that
replace it with some
drop
super
a drop a
satisfying
lot of
stuff at the
currency
low
or a
end,
lot
so
of
it could just be a
rewards.
straight blanket nerf. We really have no idea how that's going to play out. Regardless, I think like Abyss farming with boxes and just going for enraged stuff, monstrous treasure if you can get it, that kind of stuff is going to be a decent card output, and that's really all you can do. There isn't really much else for you to do here in a 6-man. That being said, let's go over all of the builds and how they've changed in the patch. All right, first things first is of course going to be the carry build. Now, the carry build really wasn't changed with the patch. If you are going for mass clear in a 6-man, just ultimate damage output, of course the best thing is still going to be Volblade Vortex. We thought we would see some changes to maybe Nebulous or the Sextant at this point, but
so
this build
his
is still
build
reigning supreme.
is doing
To be honest,
202
this might
million
be a
damage.
little
That's
overkill.
insanity.
This build is only super
That
relevant
is
in the
unattainable
5-man
for most
deli
people.
ultimate damage output, and you might get more value playing something like Spark if you're going for like a lower deli value. If you're doing like 40 to 60% deli, this build maybe doesn't have the coverage and the damage output if you're not spawning a bunch of Beyond. You might go for something a little more coverage, and Spark is probably going to be that
Almost
skill,
all of his
especially if
stats
you're
are
in
like
something
maxed out.
Defiled Cathedral with a bunch of narrow hallways. Now the carry build, if you're not familiar with how it works, it just has a heavy reliance on its damage through Nebulous. Nebulous giving you a bunch of increased damage per increased resistance, which you're getting from the Aura bot. You're using a Fizz spell, Volblade Vortex, converting 100% of that to lightning using the mastery, and then also the gem. The lightning is also being converted to cold using
So
two
he's
Call of the
explaining why
Brotherhoods with
he's using what he's
Catalyst.
using.
That's 96% to cold. And then lastly, there's a third conversion step, which is cold to fire. So we are converting 60% of that to fire. And now that we're converting 60% of that to fire, we're gaining fire as extra chaos damage. On top of that, we are gaining a bunch of extra chaos damage with Incandescent Heart. Because we're converting through
This is
all of
crazy.
the elements, Incandescent Heart is gaining gaining elemental damage as chaos at each step, and this is why this build is doing so much damage. You can use this concept to scale your damage and use any number of skills. However, fizz spells and or lightning spells scale the best because you can leverage hatred and or wrath. So Vol BV is a super good choice with a sextant. Spark is pretty much the next best choice, and then you get a little bit of crit investment. The reason we go assassin is because of the free elusive as well as all of the multi, which is sometimes a hard stat to get in party builds. Clusters are going to be vast power magnifier just for a bunch of AoE. Makes your blade vortex is a lot bigger. We get inner conviction on the tree here because we want to remove frenzy charges from the equation, because there is a alter mod that removes global defenses per frenzy charge. So if you remove frenzy charges from the equation here, we can click.
So he is not only able to get all of these crazy stats and use all of this crazy tech, he has this down to such a science that he says, oh, well, there is one mod possible in the game that could lessen our results or make it a little more difficult. Let's just get rid of it. Let's just throw it out the window. It's just, he's crazy.
Like the alter mod that gives us minus global defenses per frenzy charge, which lets us click more alters. Other than that, the build is pretty straightforward. Nothing's really changed here. Just some more crit on the tree, some ES, some reservation for some personal auras, and then it also has 2 soul rippers for
Can
flash.
I just say, like, there are aura bots that strive to give people some of the stats he has. He has 90% to all elemental resistances. I'm sure he's using a, let's see, is it in the list? He is not. I thought he was going to be using, there's a jewel that makes all of your max reses equal to each other. So then you only have to scale 1. I thought he was using that. He is not. He's immune to chaos damage. See, we talked about this earlier, so I don't know if you can see it behind my head. Here, I'll scroll down. He has 1 max life because he is immune to chaos damage. However, all these other damages are still going to hit him, so what do? You scale your energy shield. He has 10,000, which is insane. Not only that, we talked about physical damage reduction. He has 90% physical damage reduction, so something hits him with physical damage, he's mitigating 90% of that. Chance to evade, he has 95% chance to evade, which means he has... There's so little chance that something's going to hit him, and even when it does, it's gonna take a 90% mitigation. So he's only taking 10% of the damage that actually touches him. And he was able to do all this without trading off damage. This guy is like a super genius, like a super villain level player for this game.
Charge generation, which gives us more souls for the Vol Blade Vortex. One thing that did change here is the Aziri's Reign is no longer a jewel anymore. This is now deleted. The best...
In his carry POB, he's including custom modifiers that mimic being next to his support characters on his team. Oh, okay, that makes some more sense.
Double or triple multi-jewel if you can get it. Jewel like this will work just fine. Looking for double multi and maybe some other useful stat. Here I have reduced curses effect on you, so it should be pretty easy to replace that jewel that's been deleted. One of the other most important things for defenses here is the Watcher's Eye. The ES gain discipline mod is so OP on stuff like Vol Blade Vortex and Spark. You should highly prioritize this for survivability and high-end daily mapping, so make sure you're looking out for that. So if you're going to be going a farming route with either boxes or any amount of Beyond or Deli and you have a lot of density, this build is probably going to be...
Okay, we're talking about some mechanics that we heard. Deli, he's talking about Delirium, that little mirror thing we walked through that made the map harder, but when you make a map, you can make it with Delirium. He also was talking about, what did he say?
Either boxes or any amount of Beyond or Deli, and
Beyond is a special modifier. I'm going to try and break this down and make it a little easier to understand, but a lot of this is going to be jargon to new players. Beyond is a mod where it's... When you kill enemies rapidly, there is a chance that monsters from beyond, who knows where beyond is, will spawn in your map, giving you more monsters, which means more things to kill, more experience, and most importantly, the reason why you would use it is more chances to drop items. Now, especially if you're someone who can go into a map with a party, and you have somebody scaling legacy or scaling rarity and scaling quantity of items, having those beyond mods, having those extra monsters in your map is huge chance for huge loot.
You have a lot of density. This build is probably going to be the one you want to play. Now, Spark is also going to be a very good option. The builds are going to look pretty identical with maybe some different clusters and a little bit.
We're just going to watch this until the servers come back
instead of area damage. Overall, the builds are going to look pretty much the same. Now, the other farming strategy that people might be doing here in a party is going to be Legion blasting. Now, Legion blasting in 319 was...
Legion is, I I clicked a thing in a map earlier. I don't know who saw it and who didn't, but there's a little tower. And when you click it, it's going to spawn a bunch of monsters that are frozen in time. You kill as many of them as you can during a timer. And once the timer runs out, they will all spawn as regular non-frozen monsters. So you get a chance to kill them twice, which means twice as many chances for drops, which is another reason why he's using it, is because more monsters to kill, more chances for drops, better loot.
Was pretty profitable in that you were hunting basically goblins per hour, because 90% of the money you were making in 6-man mapping endgame was just churning out as many rare monsters as possible every hour, finding the goblin that was going to drop you like 30, 40 plus divine.
Another reason why people play in parties, other than to have these people, like someone can help you with your defenses, someone can help you with your offense, someone can help with rarity, is that for every additional person in your party that is also in the map at the same time, you get increased quantity of items and monsters have more HP. So again, it's harder, but there's more reward to have more players.
Divine, and then culling it with as much rarity as possible. So we set out to make a carry build.
He said culling. You'll see culling on the screen. Cull early, cull end. Culling is when a monster reaches the last 10% of its life, or in a very rare mod, 20% of its life, it will instantly take the rest of its life.
Basically just be one-shotting legions in a 6-man party with as much deli as possible. Now you're going to run into a wall where it's almost impossible to get a high enough average hit on a single spell cast to one-shot legions that are above like 60% deli. And this is basically the build that we came up with.
Which is already harder content than I'm able to do.
Here is Vol Arc. You kind of have two choices for one-shotting legions here, and it's going to be Vol Arc or Vol Ice Nova. Problem with Vol Ice Nova immediately is that it's not a lightning skill, which means it can't benefit from Wrath or half of Nebulous. Vol Arc has a pretty similar amount of coverage and has a lot more scaling to it because it's a lightning spell, so it's pretty much the obvious choice here. The other thing you might notice immediately, this is an Inquisitor, and the reason for that is because your penetration is obviously super.
So he's talking about Inquisitor. Inquisitor is an ascendancy for the Templar class that we talked about earlier, which is really good on defenses and aura and scaling things. But notice, and this is why I said earlier, you can pick any class you want. You don't have to stick with a specific class just because you want to play a certain skill. If you're smart with the way you make your build, if you notice, he's starting over here, but he's taking nodes on the tree that are on the exact opposite side, and that's because he's using these long distance travel nodes on the outer ring to get over there. So if you're smart with planning and stuff like that, you're able to effectively make any build work. The only thing is you're choosing these classes for your ascendancy nodes or for the bonuses they grant or for stuff that's easy to gain for leveling. If you're a new player, which is what I would recommend, is don't try and make a build like this where you're like, oh, I want this, but I want to use it with a skill, and all the nodes for that skill or to help me with that type of damage are on the opposite side of the tree. As a new player, don't do that. Play in just this little safe area when you first start, and then when you start to learn the game more, start venturing out into the tree. There's a lot of nodes here that do a lot of things, but again, that's what the search bar is for.
Super dependent on the curse bot, and it is impossible for the curse bot to get equal coverage on all sides of the Legion, and so relying on the curse bot as your source of penetration is typically a bad idea if your goal is to be one-shotting legions. And so the best ascendancy choice here is going to be Inquisitor for your inevitable judgment, obviously. Now there's a couple things to mention here about Vol.
Now he says obviously, but we're going to break it down. Non-critical strikes penetrate 10% of elemental resistances. Critical strikes ignore enemy monster resistances. So it doesn't matter if you have a mod that says, monsters in your map have 1,000%, which it's not a real mod, but have 1,000% elemental resistance. This is just saying that, if you're dealing a critical strike, ignore all of it. They have no damage reduction against your elemental attacks, which is right here. Actually, he only has 64% crit chance here, but that's still good enough that again, non-critical strikes are going to penetrate 10% of that elemental resistance, so they're going to have 10% less resistance to his attacks. Or when he deals a crit, which is going to be the majority of the time if he's not finding a way to permanently crit, is going to just completely ignore that resistance. So he says obviously, but I thought I would break it down for you.
Inquisitor for your inevitable judgment, obviously. Now, there's a couple things to mention here about Vol Arc mechanically that explains some of the build choices we made here. Vol Arc and Vol Ice Nova are similar mechanically.
This is the same build he's using different skills on.
The entirety of the skill is calculated based off of just a single hit. What I mean by that is you cast the skill once, and if the skill has crit, then the entire skill is critting post chain, and on Vol Ice Nova, every single time it creates an additional wave. So even though you're spawning like 100, waves, or, you're chaining hundreds of times, either the skill is critting or the skill is doing double damage throughout the entire cast, or it's not. So it's really imperative that you get your crit chance basically to near 100%, if not already at 100%. And then additionally, you want to try and get your sources of double damage from the Sabo support, as well as on cluster jewels from pressure point to near 100%.
So this is what we were talking about, cluster jewels. I didn't want to go into these because they're not very beginner friendly. If the skill tree wasn't big enough, you can customize your skill tree by adding on these what's called cluster jewels. There's large, medium, and small. Cluster jewels have their own set of various roles and various base types, and it might say something like small nodes give you increased elemental resistance or 10% more damage, but you take them for the notables because the notables can do very big things. Case in point, can we look at pressure points again?
As well as on cluster jewels from...
I actually use this jewel myself. Your critical strikes have a 5% chance to deal double damage and increase critical strike chance. So that's really good, especially if you have several of these, because that means this stacks. So if you have 3 of these, it's 15% chance to deal double damage and 90% increased critical strike chance. So if you can't find what you want on a tree, it's possible that you might be able to... hold on, I'm going to wait for him to pan away.
Near 100%.
These little things with the big, colorful gems in them are jewel sockets. Jewels are like gems in which they can be socketed. However, they don't require a specific color or a specific anything like that. They do require jewel sockets. So we see right where my mouse is here, a tiny jewel socket. In this radius, that radius is something that he's using here. I'm not sure what it is until he talks about it. You cannot put cluster jewels inside the tree. You can only put them on these large cluster jewel nodes or large jewel nodes. So you'd spec out and you'd purchase these with your level up points, with your skill points, just like you would for any other passive. And once you have those, you can put jewels in them. If you put a regular jewel in them, you can still put a regular jewel in a large jewel socket. But typically they're used for cluster jewels, so you can expand the tree and get more specific with your tree on how you like it. Again, they're not very beginner friendly, but probably by the time you reach, yellow or red maps, you'll be looking into them a little bit.
And so you have that consistency on the one-shots on the Legion. The gearing here for this character is going to be very similar to what you find on other carries for 6-man parties. The staples here of Nebulous, Incandescent Heart, Double Call of the Brotherhoods. I have a Mage Blood on here, but if you don't have a Mage Blood, just replace it with a rare belt with some res. This is probably going to be the slot where you're just capping out your res. Now, the clusters here are important. We want to get as much crit strike chance and as well as double damage from pressure points as we can.
So he is stacking
also a super
multiple.
good source of crit chance. It's probably the best thing to pair with pressure points. Alternatively, the other thing you can get here is crit multi. Technically, if the minor support is giving you 100% chance to deal double damage on that first hit, it will proliferate to the rest of the Legion. But this can give you a little bit of consistency on the Legion if perhaps he doesn't have all of his mines out. You're consistently putting out all the mines on the first target and getting your double damage proc. You can definitely drop the pressure points and just go crit multi-mediums instead. The other thing to note here is we are going Inner Conviction once again. The reason for that is because you can get Inner Conviction to remove your power charges and then get them back by using Ralakesh's Impatience.
I don't understand why, but let's see. Use all frenzy, endurance, and power charges when you move. Minimum endurance charges equal to maximum while stationary. So it maxes out your charges.
You stand still completely.
But again, the reason why he was taking that note is he was talking about that one mod that, the more frenzy charges you have, the worse it is for you. I'm sure that goes for all of the people in your party as well. So his whole party is probably going to have that node in which he's not having frenzy charges on any of his builds that generate charges or have a chance that they might accidentally steal charges or something like that, because he doesn't want the negative side effects. He's going to explain the tech behind how you're losing those charges but still gaining them back.
By using Ralakesh's Impatience.
Okay, let's go back.
Your power charges and then get them back by using...
That node gain power charges instead of frenzy charges. So if he was to gain a frenzy charge, he's not gaining a frenzy charge, he's gaining a power charge instead.
Inner Conviction to remove your power charges and then get them back by using Ralakesh's Impatience. Ralakesh, when you stand still, completely bypasses the downside of Inner Conviction, and it allows you to get both power and frenzy charges in combination with Badge of the Brotherhood. So this will give you a ton more.
22% chance to lose a frenzy charge when you use a travel skill. He's not gaining frenzy charges. That doesn't matter. 22% chance to lose a power charge when you gain elusive. He already has elusive from his ascendancy, so he doesn't have to worry about gaining it.
Damage. The reason this is so powerful is because you're getting more damage from Inner Conviction as well as the more damage for all of your frenzy charges. And you can absolutely prep in the middle of the Legion, stand still, get all of your charges, and unleash it on the entire Legion. The other consideration here is that this build is currently CI, but it doesn't need to be. You can absolutely turn this into a life-based build and go Pain Attunement. You just throw on Pet Blood, and you're basically good to go. This isn't totally necessary depending on how your gearing is, and especially how powerful your Aurabot is. You're already one-shotting the Legion, and you don't need the Pain Attunement damage, then just go CI. It makes you a little bit safer. Otherwise, totally go Pain Attunement, get that extra Pet Blood, and you'll be doing a ton more damage, and it makes your Legion one-shots more consistent. The other important thing to note here on this build is you need to get an impossible escape on Acrobatics for the additional chaining range down here. It also gives you a little bit of crit multi. This is super good.
Impossible escape. Again, we're talking very late game stuff. If you're a new player, don't worry about this. We went over all the beginner stuff earlier. If you want to rewind, go right ahead. Impossible escape is a unique jewel that goes on your tree that allows you within a certain radius of a notable, or of a, is it not a notable, the heck are they called? Keystone. Within a certain radius of a keystone, you can allocate points for free without having to work your way all the way down to them. So that's, I mean, very end game, very expensive stuff. I wouldn't worry about that, but that's why you see this ring and why he doesn't have connecting lines to anything.
So basically with this build, you just run up to the Legion, have somebody activate it for you, throw down all of your mines to get the double damage from the minor support. You press the Vol Arc twice, and if you've done everything correctly, you're hopefully one-shotting the Legions. One thing that you might want to do that we've been experimenting around with is sending one person to each side of the Legion, like one person go left, one person go right, and that kind of like activates the mobs. I don't know why this happens, but we find that one-shotting the Legion with this skill is more consistent if you've kind of like woken the mobs, so to speak. I think there's something going on with like the mobs aren't activated or active on the server, and so they're not being chained to with the Vol Arc. But if you simply have somebody walk to each side of the Legion to wake up the mobs, for some reason the chaining is more consistent. And then we've also tried to stick to like 2, maybe 3 orbs of Deli on this if you're just churning through Legion. The Deli isn't going to be super lucrative for you on scaling the Arch Nemesis Goblin rewards anyways, and so just being able to churn through more Legions per hour at like 60% Deli is going to probably be better for you in the long run. Yeah, the whole goal of this build is just to walk up to the Legion, get up all of your buffs, one-shot it with Vol Arc, collect your loot from the Legion, hopefully you've spawned a Goblin, and then you leave and go next map. Now, this build could be completely irrelevant. If the Goblins are shit, not rewarding, this build is fucking worthless, but if you want to go for a Legion angle with a carry, this is definitely something I would look into. Now we're moving on to the Aurabot. Once again, there's 2 versions here. One that's kind of like early game, where you're going to be able to do like 40,
Tom, I'd like to know your thoughts on his Aurabot.
The other one is going to be a higher investment version that gets you to like 89, 90 overcap. To be honest, I don't know if the 90 overcap version is super necessary. I'm not even sure that 100% Deli is even worth doing anymore. I'm going to include that version there anyways in case you want to do it. There is fortunately not really any changes here to the Aurabot. Of course, the Conqueror's efficiency and potency have gotten removed. This affects us in 2 ways. Obviously, the Conqueror's efficiency has removed some efficiency from our tree, but they've added it back as a rare jewel. So it's super easy just to replace our jewel with one of these. You can corrupt it, just a 1 mod, but it does let you level up your vitality a little bit if you do get them, so that's one option. And then because they've removed 3% aura effect from the Conqueror's potency, it makes hitting breakpoints a lot more tricky. However, they did add back 5 aura effect to the Jinx Juju. This is now giving you 15 aura effect, so we lost 3 and gained 5. So if you're using Juju instead of Ashes of the Stars, you are going to be getting all of those breakpoints back just by
He's just talking about other uniques that would be used in an Aurabot build if you're interested in support builds.
Early on, I think Prism Guardian is
His Aurabot is all League tech. I use Legacy tech. Fair enough.
Can go Victorios. They are very similar. It's just that for me, I like to put on a Prism Guardian and start making my chest. And then once I have the 25% effect chest, I can then Awakener Orbit onto whichever endgame chest I'm going for. I think my endgame Aurabot wants to be wearing a Regalia and not a Victorios. And so while this build might not be as super efficient as a Victorios version early on, you can kind of like build into your endgame chest. And so that's the reason I do this. There's one other thing to talk about, which is going to be Vol Smite here was introduced. Now, obviously we don't know numbers on the Smite, but for me, the obvious angle here is to put it inside of your Vol Caress. It'll give you +5 levels on the Smite. There are a couple questions, however. We don't know that the buff from Vol Smite and regular Smite will stack. If they do stack, you obviously use them side by side on each other. You want to have a Vol Smite in the gloves to get the +5, and then maybe you want to have a second Phantasmal Smite in a separate gem setup so that you can get the buffs of both. Now, if they don't stack, you're probably going to make the hard choice between getting getting Phantasmal Smite or Vol Smite, and that's purely a numbers game. Because if the buffs don't stack, you are going to need to choose between the attack and cast speed that Phantasmal Smite gives you versus the extra lightning damage that Vol Smite gives you. And to be honest, the lightning
Vol
damage
Smite
on the
came
Vol
out
Smite
since
has
this
to be
video?
really
Oh, it's new?
substantial to outweigh the Phantasmal Smite attack and cast.
Which is
speed
why
bonus
he's
that
saying
it
he
gives.
doesn't know,
it
I'm
could
assuming.
be that this Vol Smite isn't super usable on Orabot because you're going to have to choose between Phantasmal Smite and the Vol Smite buff. But if they stack, I would say maybe go for 2 Smite setups, 1 in your Vol Caress, because it might be hard to get a Vol Phantasmal Smite. If you get a Vol Phantasmal Smite, you can obviously use both in the same gem setup here. That might be looking to be a little bit expensive, if you know what I mean. And then on the endgame version, we're going to be looking at a few changes here as well. Basically, your endgame version is going to want to put on a Matua Tapuna with a +1 Scepter and an Ashes of the Stars, of course. Ashes and the Scepter being super necessary so that we can get our Purity auras to level 23. Our Purity is at level 23, gives us another breakpoint on the max res, which is basically the only thing we care about. Unfortunately, with Lake of Kalandra not going core, we aren't going to be able to get those really crazy 24% life reservation rings. And so I really think the best thing to do on a budget in League is to go back to Skyforths. You still have the Sextant. You're going to be able to use all of your Vol Disciplines in conjunction with your party members to have all the sustain you'd ever need. So putting on Skyforest to make your build a little bit cheaper is obviously a no-brainer for me. If you're doing content like invitations or you're running maps that can't use the Vol Lockout Sextant, then you probably obviously don't want to use Skyforths.
We're not going to talk
Using
about
the Sextant,
sextants and
no-brainer for me.
modifiers and
Just
stuff. They're
slap
just
on the
ways to make your
Skyforce.
map
That's what I'm gonna be
harder
personally
or
doing. Unfortunately,
stuff like that.
because Conqueror's Potency was removed, you do need to divine your chest to a perfect 30% in order to hit the 89 breakpoint. Other than that, this build isn't super changed. You are putting in 2 of the new RMR jewels here. There's nothing crazy on this build. This is probably going to run you like 20 to 40 divines depending on the price that you get your ashes at. And then also we don't know how expensive Unnatural Instinct is going to be. So those are a couple question marks with this build. But other than that, it's not super different than what it was last patch. There is one last angle here you can take for an
the way he
Orbot.
designs
I wanna
his
shout
trees
out
are crazy.
Waxseed. He sent this POB in my Twitch chat. I modified it a little bit to make it cheaper, but basically the angle is that you go up here and you grab this Elegant Hubris either in this socket. You can also put it in this socket here if you want to. And you basically just need 3 notables, but then you travel all the way down to Champion of the Cause down here. And because you take Champion of the Cause manually, you're pathing to it. You have a lot more leniency on getting aura.
So
effect
again,
on
notice like he is utilizing these travel nodes to get all the way. He is all the way over here and all the way down here. He's got like 3/4 of the tree covered. He's not taking a bunch in between. He's coming down here for very specific reasons, but that is another way you can make a build.
Here, and this build puts everything in a Victorios. It has some pretty respectable numbers for Orbot. It's also not too expensive. It just does have a reliance on the Elegant Hubris. You do need a 3 notable Elegant Hubris either in this socket or this socket here. You can put it in the Templar socket, but you are going to be deleting a good amount of your ES. You also are probably going to be losing a breakpoint from the Devotion cluster, so not a super great idea if you get in the Templar socket. You do have the Jewel that has 3 notables. You can definitely path all the way around, but both of these builds are going to be in a similar ballpark of investment in the 20 to 30 divine range to be able to get to 89 or 90 overcap. Moving on to the curses. Now, these are the big changes that happened this patch, right? The manifesto. So basically, notables on cluster jewels are gone. On the helmet, the Ichor and the enchant are both nerfed. Replica Doedres is deleted. Doedres had a huge penalty applied to it because it's linked to Blasphemy now. And then also Blasphemy got a huge less multiplier on it. So after looking at all the changes on the patch notes and tinkering around with the numbers a little bit, this is the setup we've landed on. Now, first things first, CurseBot is still absolutely the best thing to slot as the third-party member if you want. It's still insanely powerful. GGG is correct.
So he's even talking about the strategy of if you don't have a full 6-man party, what's the most effective way to add as you go with party members. With 1, obviously you need someone that's dealing damage and can survive. With 2, you have a carry, someone with huge damage, and then someone with Orabot that can give you defenses or even more attack. Primarily, you'd be looking for defenses. A curse bot to curse enemies would be the third party member, which, I mean, we were talking a little bit about curses earlier. Applying debuffs to your enemies to make them easier to kill or slower to do less damage, etc.
Correct in saying that the curse penalty being removed is going to be huge for cursing bosses and stuff in your map like Kosis, as well as any bosses that spawn. Rare mobs also don't have the penalty applied to them. And with Enfeeble and Temp Chains getting buffed on their base value, while you are going to be cursing at a lesser amount, the nerfs don't seem as substantial as they seem at a first glance. So the passive tree in POB is not updated here. So in my video, I haven't been allocating the passive nodes that are on the tree. However, I'll release an update updated POB and edit the description of the video whenever I do get that updated POB out. So first things first is, fortunately, the cluster jewels with the 2% effect are still in the game, which means that you can still do something similar as you did before, which was getting large with Vendor and Defender and just getting 2% curse effect clusters. It's still probably going to be one of the best ways to get your curse effect on the tree. Now, a lot of the core items here are going to be very similar. It's Series Deflection still giving you that 19% curse effect. You still are going to be able to get an Ichor plus an enchant, albeit at a lesser value on the helmet. Diala's is still going to be best in slot, and I'll explain a little bit why after we go through the rest of the gear. Vixens for an extra curse, Windstreak for an extra curse, Star of Ray class for the AoE, and since Replica Doedre's Damning receives such a big nerf, I don't think it's worth putting on anymore. The reason why is because you can get 2 extra curses here on the rings and then also apply a mark and punishment.
So he's actually not
Punishment is now
using the new
usable on a
rings, I'm
curse bot
surprised.
without stealing kills because
There's new
they
rings
moved the
for
10%
curse bots, for
overkill node
curses.
onto an alt quality instead of on the base gem itself, which means that now we can get an extra curse and apply an extra damage curse that we didn't have before, which is punishment. So this build right here is level 88, and I'm reserving 12 points here to take some of the curse nodes that are up here, and also there's another curse node or curse cluster right here basically. So you should have enough points to take both of them. I took a look on PoE Planner for the new passive tree curse effect, and we are going to be getting 25% from the tree that is currently not in this version of the passive tree, so I have the 25% increase effect on my curses written in here. I also have 18% reduced curse effect on the modifiers here because these cluster jewels are at 3%, and I have 18 total nodes, so I subtracted 18 curse effect. And then also I have Enfeeble and Temp Chains in a Blasphemy setup, and because that's not applied to the gem yet, I just wrote it here in the modifiers just to simulate the amount of curse effect we can get. So with all of that, we do have an Enfeeble that's sitting at a 1.85 multiplier on Blasphemy, and the Temp Change is sitting at a little bit below, which is 1.61. Now, you could go higher on the Temp Chains if you wanted to and go 1.85 on the Temp Chains, but I think the Enfeeble gives you a little bit more value. I think you want to get the curse effect of the
I just want to check if the game is back. Nope, still not back.
Helmet. Now, while this multiplier might not seem very high, because the values of Enfeeble were buffed and you're not cursing at a penalty, you're actually going to be making up a decent chunk of that curse effect that you lost. The reason why is because you're putting Enfeeble and Temp Chains in the Dialas and scaling levels instead of quality now. Because they've normalized the level scaling on all of the curses, you're actually going to be getting a lot more bang for your buck when you level up your curses to like level 30 or even 32. So they added +2 gem levels to curses on the passive tree, on top of getting +3 in a Diala's as well as an Empower. You can easily get your Enfeeble to level 30, and I think I expect the gem scaling post 20 to be a lot more favorable than it was before. So you're going to be getting a good amount of curse effect, less damage multipliers from the Enfeeble, and the action speed on the Temp Chains. So the levels matter a lot more. This is why Diala's is still a very good choice, because it is probably the easiest way for the curse bot to scale a bunch of levels. So you're going to have a higher base curse but a lower multiplier, so you're going to be bridging the gap a little bit, but it is still very much a nerf. If I had to guess, it's maybe like a 20 to 30% nerf of total power on the curse bot, which is completely fine. It's still going to be extremely powerful. It's still going to provide a lot of defenses. It's going to have a lot of penetration on it. Speaking of the pen, this is what it looks like. It's going to have 97% cold. It's going to have maybe like 160% on fire. And then also it's going to have like 70 to 80% on the chaos. There's still a shit ton of pen. Additionally, we are going to be able to cast punishment now, because punishment no longer has the 10% overkill explode damage. It's now on an alt quality. We're going to be getting an extremely good offensive curse that we weren't able to use before while MFing. Now, the curse setup has changed.
MFing means magic find. Magic find are characters that increase rarity and quantity of items dropped. So when we're talking about you can have somebody come into your map and help you get more loot, those are those people. Obviously, your build has to work with theirs as well, which is what he's talking about here.
No longer casting any of our offensive curses on Blasphemy. The setup for this uses Vixens. Now, we're going to be applying all the offensive curses with Vixens, and basically it's a self-casting setup, unfortunately. That being said, it's probably the best way to apply them at the moment, barring some new creative Arcanist brand setup, but I still think Vixens is probably going to be the easiest way to get it online, and it's probably going to just be the easiest thing to stick on. The way it works is you cast a curse spell, and then you can have a 4-link with 4 curses inside of the Vixens, and then it casts 4 additional curses whenever you cast that one curse. So this allows you to apply up to 5 curses with one cast. You essentially use one curse not inside of the links, and it will trigger all 4 of the curse spells that are inside of the gloves. And you can look at the AoE of this. We are sitting at a 73 AoE on our curses inside of the Dialas, which is just massive. We're casting an elemental weakness inside of the Dialas, which is getting a bunch of levels. I've down leveled it to simulate the nerfs, and then it will basically cast a 4 link with all of the other curses in the gloves, which is punishment, flammability.
That's how smart this guy is. He was able to sit there and say, okay, what percentage is this nerf? All right, we're going to de-level this gem to emulate that. That's crazy.
Frostbite, Despair. You're running around with your defensive curses on all the time. 5 offensive curses you're casting out of the Vixens, and that's probably going to be the best way to do it. Because you're no longer reserving a bunch of stuff on Blasphemy, you do have some extra RMR left over, so you can easily jam in a Determination and Defiance banner. You can also try to jam in your own Discipline, and there's definitely ways to do that, especially if you drop the Defiance. There's one unfortunate thing here, and that is the curse bot can no longer really equip southbounds because the gloves are such a useful tool now to apply the curses. You are probably going to need to rotate Vol Cyclone onto somebody else if you want to use it at all. Anyways, we're moving on from the curse bot. Next couple builds here had absolutely 0 changes to them. The Mana Guardian, the Roa character, the Cole character, and then also the Mind support. One thing to note here is that a couple of these builds lost Conqueror's potency, but you simply just replace them with a rarity jewel on the color. One other thing to note on the Mind support is that maybe Kingmaker is not super available. We have no idea what the fuck they did to this item, so he's unable to put on the Kingmaker.
Well, we do know now. It's going to be hard to get.
Like
I'm sure with the amount of money they make, it's not going to be an issue, though.
Edges if you want some more personal tankiness. Last but not least is going to be the duo builds that I'd suggest. Now, you have a couple choices here. The bottom line is that Spark is probably going to be your absolute best skill choice. The gearing and characters of all of these are going to look very similar regardless of ascendancy. You're going to have 2 Nebulouses on, 2 Call of the Brotherhoods. It's just you do have some leeway with your ascendancy choice here. You're not necessarily pigeonholed into going anything. You just kind of need to choose something on the top side of the tree. Elementalist is probably the strongest. Witch Ascendancy. On Shadow, you can absolutely pull off either a Trickster or an Assassin. And there are absolutely arguments for going Inquisitor with all of its regen and obviously Inevitable Judgment, so you don't have to worry about pen. All of these choices are super viable, and you might want to...
So once again, just to reiterate, he's saying here, you can make a build that's as broken as his are, no matter which ascendancy you go, as long as you're able to smartly path over to what you want.
Ask yourself what you'd rather be league starting with early on in the campaign and in early maps before you transition to a party build, and that might affect what you're playing in the end game. One thing to note here is if you are going Inquisitor for the Inevitable Judgment, you are obviously not going to need an Abhorrent Interrogation. If you are playing the other ascendancies on Witch or Shadow, Abhorrent Interrogation is honestly a really insane pair of gloves. On all these builds as well, you can look into going Pain Attunement with Pet Blood. It makes the most sense on Inquisitor because you get a bunch of the regen. Still really good even though it was recently nerfed. But other than that, you can basically choose anything on the top side of the tree. For the Aura bot, once again, not much has changed here. One of the main differences here you're going to just be using on the duo Aura support here is that you're going to want to take the Dreamer cluster with the reduced mana cost here, because most likely in a duo you aren't going to be able to rely on the Vol Lockout Sextant to be able to cast your Blessing. The other way to get your Blessing online is to get some reduced mana cost.
Blessings
on the tree
are
here,
similar to
in
auras.
Conjunction with a flask with the
Keep it
reduced
simple.
mana cost craft, as well
For
as
those of you that
a
don't understand the
inspiration,
jargon.
either Divergent or normal.
You
and
don't
that
really
will
need
get
to
your
know 'em
mana
yet.
cost to 0 on the Blessing. Once again, you also have a little bit of socket freedom here to include one utility mine setup. You can choose to go Stormblast Mine or the High Impact Portal. The High Impact Portal has a little bit more setup. It feels worse to throw while you're mapping, but if you can set them up on like an invitation, the High Impact Portal mines can sometimes be a little bit higher damage than the Stormblast Mine, although I do know a lot of people prefer the Stormblast Mine setup because it's easier to throw and replace them. Either way, you are going to want a mine setup on your Aura bot, extra damage that's basically completely free. You can absolutely do the Victario's version of the Aura bot that comes down to Champion of the Cause. It's just that once again, you are going to want to take the Dreamer Wheel here in conjunction with the Flask so that you can cast all of your blessings for free. Yeah, that about does it for the builds this time around for the 320 expansion. I'm going to do a separate video that more broadly outlines.
Okay. Is the game back online? Here, let me exit and relaunch Path. Maybe it's not just the servers. Maybe it's my game. Now, still server is disconnected, which is a bummer. But yeah, that's how in-depth some of these endgame players go. Again, if you're just starting, don't worry about half of that. Just jump in the game with the basic knowledge from the beginning of this video and have fun until you start to get to the endgame stuff and you're like, okay, well, I get the basis of the game now. What can I do to get better? And then I'd start looking at some of these. We could look at league starts. Let's see if anybody else is going Vol Cleave for a league start. We can also go back to our normal thing here, as opposed to our video react. Oh, we have one, an Impaled Slayer. 4+ mil. So for mine here, I have 3.5 mil. If that's, you know, sometimes this app does not calculate everything correctly. But here's how I have mine set up. I'm not pathing all the way around to take a bunch of crazy nodes. Most of what I need is right here. We are using what we were talking about earlier, cluster jewels. However, we're only using a small right now, and this is at level 90. I'm not going to go in depth like he does, but ours is at 3.5 million. So I'm interested to see what this guy is doing with his Slayer version of a very similar build.
Yo, I'm
Yo.
Skinner, and you want to play Vol Cleave in 3.20. Well,
Possibly.
if you've been looking around for guides, you've seen a lot of things where people got like no hit points. It's kind of, I don't know what they're doing, but we got almost 6k HP, Slayer Leech, full spell suppression. This is my build I played in 3.19 Lake of Kalandra, testing out the +2 radius buff to Cleave, which obviously it needed much more than that. But I did play that build to level 94 in Lake of Kalandra. I played it from week 2 to 3.
Can we
in like solo self. When you league start this, use Shattering Steel. So splitting Steel at level 2, and then Shattering Steel from level 12 all the way onward. Level some Cleaves in your offhand, 6 of them. And then when they hit level 20, make them quality. And when they hit 20 again, make sure you've been spec'd into the alpha, and you're going to want to double corrupt all your 2020 Cleaves, because you want the 2120 Vol Cleave. Okay? At the very least, you'll get some 2020 Vol Cleaves that you can use. They're going to be expensive this league. A lot of people want to play the
He
new
speaks
Vol
very
skills.
slow.
Don't get forced into having to spend like divines for them. Just plan from the beginning, and you'll be okay. So
That's something I
obviously,
am actually going to do.
this build that I played here, which was pretty good. Let me just show the tree for a bit here. We're no longer going to use this Slayer Cull because Vol Cleave has Cull. And then there's some variants. I'll show both of them in my POB. Oh, sorry, let me zoom out. So I'm not blocking anything. All right.
Can we?
Yes, I haven't played in a couple months, obviously, because Lake of Kalandra was dead. Killed Searing Exarch real quick before this. It was kind of sloppy, but I'll show you it after killing him. You can kill the pinnacle boss.
I would have edited this down a little bit more. How long is this video?
Really
38 minutes. It probably could have been 20.
What you're gonna see is that with the new Vol
If the whole video
Cleave,
plays out like
you
this.
can have between 4 and 6 million boss, like map boss DPS, without considering whatever you get from your Headhunter buff. That's just from the buff that you're gonna get from Vol Cleave.
And he's running a headhunter on
which
it.
is
Interesting.
Going to be the 60% more damage when the enemy is on low life.
So it's interesting that he's running a headhunter. We looked at replica headhunter earlier, which is one of the unique items that a lot of people want, because when you kill a magic enemy, you have a 20% chance to steal their mods on hit or on kill for, I believe it's 20 seconds. Headhunter, not the replica, the original Headhunter, is similar, but it's for rare enemies. The new skill that's coming out, Vol Cleave, actually has a mini Headhunter built in. It's not as extreme as Headhunter, but when you kill an enemy with Vol Cleave, you will gain its mods not with chance. You will just gain its mods for 20 seconds on duration. So it's interesting that he's running a headhunter with it, as opposed to something like a replica, so he can steal both magic and rare mods. Watch Snapow's video, sentinel.mp4. It's a quick highlight video? Yeah, I got you. Sentinel.mp4. Oh my god, all the loot on his screen already. This is the type of loot drops that this guy gets.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds, owner of Mint Mobile.
Hey Ryan.
The holiday offer, I think that you're gonna like. When you switch,
See you next league.
Jules.
Abyss, help me.
Oh, fire.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my fucking god! I duped a squatter! Oh my fucking god! I duped a squatter! Oh my fucking god! What the fuck? Like, there's no way.
Dude, the loot they drop is crazy.
Oh my fucking god.
And you're gonna, especially on crazy builds, you're gonna see a lot of on-screen effects. I will say, for some of these builds like this, or if you play with players like this, even if this isn't you, if you don't have a beefy computer, sometimes you're gonna run into issues. Quick little tip with that is if you shut the sound off, it actually will boost your FPS and you'll experience less lag. Turn down your settings if you have to. This game does not look terrible with poor settings.
God.
But as you can see, like, all the AoE effects, those are all items dropping.
What the fuck just happened there?
So even his game is lagging. Like, you can see it. It looks like it's poor quality, but it's just the actual game
That's a new
lagging.
record. That bottom one too bad.
This is him playing with a 6-man party like he was talking about.
It's a cold iron point seed.
Yes. Gold iron point seed.
5 gold iron points in like 2 seconds.
The sheet theory, it's real.
Does someone have one?
Think of all the stuff they don't pick up that to me is like,
No way.
they got a double mage blood?
No way.
Where? No way. What?
He got 2 mage bloods. Holy crap.
No fucking way. What?
This is my revenge. Fuck you guys.
Step on all of them, step on all of them.
Oh
Yes.
Bot, everybody bot right now.
Dude, his maps are so insane.
I'm pulling.
Goodbye, game.
Everybody bot.
Goodbye, FPS.
We're crashing with a mage blow on the ground. What's happening?
What FPS?
You can't even see what's going on in the map.
We're party
because of all
play
the stuff.
cheating with like fucking. Oh, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm dead.
So there's a reason he's not respawning. Especially when you play with a 6-man party, or even if you're only playing with a couple of people, but you die more often. You will eventually run out of portals and not be able to come back into the map. When you only have 6 portals and you play with 6 people, you only get 1 shot. And when you die, it's better to not leave the map, because while you're there, there's still a bonus to quantity. Remember, we said that for each additional player in the map, there is, I believe it's 50% increased quantity, or 20% increased quantity, something like that. And then monsters have 50% increased HP. So you get more item drops if you stay in the map, even if you die.
What is going on in here?
As long as someone's there to finish it up.
Oh my fucking god.
Oh my god.
The hell was that one? Oh no.
He clicks fast. He just
That wasn't Ernie.
steal that.
What about the effigy? Chat's favorites.
My timer went away.
Oh, yes, and then it came back.
Easy. Alright, we got plenty
Somebody
of time now.
explain that one, Atheist.
This is time traveling.
Oh, I'm dead!
What?
Explain that one, atheist.
What
the fuck?
He plays with Empyrean, who's
I
a very
wasn't
big streamer.
standing on whatever the fuck
Path of
exploded on all
Exile.
4 of you
Good luck,
dumbasses. Put it in the map. Or daddy's gonna get angry. I'm coming. What?
Chaos damage. So, also, this is what it looks like. If you do have energy shield and you die to chaos damage, remember we said if you're not that notable, chaos inoculation, or if you don't have something else that prevents chaos damage from going through your energy shield, this can happen. He still has 4,000 energy shield, but his life ran out because he got hit with big chaos damage.
How?
And again, he's not leaving because increased quantity.
Did my flask? What is that? What is that? What is that? What is going on? I want red too. Why isn't Rasmus getting? I'm dying. I'm recovering. That mod is so bullshit, GGG. That mod is not okay. How is that in the fucking game?
Oh my god.
What are they smoking over there?
It turns off my healing.
What
Listen,
is
we rolled the
that?
We landed on the gear
We
that.
landed on the.
How many albas? Oh my fucking god. Oh my fucking god. What?
Holy crap.
Mouse is over.
Just imagine screens full of good loot. That's the dream.
700,000.
Apothecary.
We got an apothecary?
There it is.
35x. He's dragging.
Trying so hard.
He's dragging. He's trying to scroll up.
His game is so overloaded he can't even scroll up. These are how beefy his games are.
Customized, save $652.
Oh man.
Liberty Mutual.
This was a good video. This was a good choice. These are crazy. I can't believe the game server's down. I wonder if they're just gonna leave him down. I wonder if they're just gonna leave him down until the update comes out. You got another one? You got another one of those tasty, spicy little videos? Throm is currently down for maintenance. Try again later. Yeah. You guys want to watch KaitoCree? KaitoCree's pretty cool. I like that I actually pop up and recommend it. I'm sure it's just because I'm signed into my actual account that I'm popping up, but that'd be cool if these videos popped up and someone's like, not Path of Exile, Path of Exile. Although I feel like most people also aren't watching a bunch of beatboxing videos. Probably aren't watching a bunch of beatboxing videos like I do. What is this? That's not the UI for Path of Exile on console, is it? No, it is not. It is Elden Ring.
Yo, I'm Skinner, and you.
Oh, there's his POV.
One vulnerability that you get 1 through 30. 6.
Can we see some
times
gameplay?
2, and then the offhand, and you add it to the main hand, and then you average frenzy. Fine. As you see, this is in 3.19. This is, as a pinnacle boss, I have 3
Needs more attack speed.
Boss DPS, but damage uptime is not amazing on melee builds. So there's a ramping period as the rage, as you see, is slowly going up, and then you're gonna lose rage during ball phase. It's kind of annoying, but yeah, I have.
These are just what some of the boss fights look like.
One, because I try to leap slam over
all
the
these
ball.
things will kill
The
you
other one,
instantly. The goal is to like weave your way in between them.
I cast some totems down to like block for me, but then I was too close to them, and I just die. And
So even with a build that's doing that much damage, he's still he's having a hard time with this.
I really hate this motherfucker doing this ball phase and
Okay.
Oh no, it's not this point, but it's fine, dude.
Can we see the health bar, please? There we go.
Favor. It's gonna be
And
super
it gets
expensive,
more intense the longer you're in it.
and cleave does not scale off of weapon range, and
Oh. Cleave does not scale off of weapon range. That's all I needed to hear because I have this, which I'm using. This is the new version of the axe that's going to be coming out. The plus 30 to quality of socketed support gems is still really good. So is the attack speed and the fizz damage and the bleed. But the weapon range, I guess, is useless for cleave. I wonder if it only applies to strike skills. Check us out their End League highlight videos, or Google My City or Reddit and click a post. Let's watch one more of those videos. See what he did for MP4. Unless he didn't play MP4. Oh, he did.
Teamwork lights you up. With a
all these people that were complaining about no loot, it's time to see what they actually were dropping.
Teams, keeping tiny tasks and big light bulb moments on track and on time, so your team can light up the world. Try Asana.
Oh. Oh. What
Wait, what?
This whole game lagging.
5?
Red and Samurai left the area.
What?
Am I dead?
There's a ton of mobs like this way. Yeah. In this doorway, holy fuck.
Oh my god, we gotta go.
Oh my god.
He's using ward too, huh?
Oh god.
Somebody get the boots.
Catches up.
This is gone.
The game just crashing.
He had stacks.
Yo, where's the items?
Yeah, facts.
I got an apothecary.
Is that even worth picking up?
No, it's not.
No.
It's worthless.
Oh, he's comparing Sentinel to this league.
Easy flap. We're going, we're going, we're going. Oh my, what? What? Oh my.
Let's say like takes like 50 maps to drop one apothecary.
Wow. Yeah, okay. I see why he was complaining, why they were all complaining about the loots. So this is Sentinel. This is now.
Did I crash? Oh, no, I didn't crash. I didn't crash. Crazy.
What the fuck just happened there?
This was Sentinel League.
Nothing. What? Did you pick it all up?
No, I didn't pick anything up.
What?
Is it double mage one? Where?
Where?
Oh. We got the squire. Got it! What? Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my fucking god! We duped a squire! We made 39 chaos! 39!
So they spent like several divines on making their maps and stuff like that. Empyrean, someone who is a famous Path of Exile streamer, is out here playing Far Cry during this league.
What are we supposed to do? We have like 1,000 rarity and 120 quant with 6 people. So now we're leveling gems in a simulacrum and getting brain damage. What are we supposed to do?
I'm having an aneurysm.
Help.
Oh my god.
I overcame all the odds. I ain't been playing it safe now. I was just giving my all.
What? That's interesting. The Witcher is now going to be in Fortnite. Maybe it's time to update Fortnite, possibly. And the game is not back, right? No, I'm going to have to check my inventory later. Oh, man. All right. I think that is going to do it for us today. We have some exciting things. They're probably going to leave it down. The new league starts in 2 hours, 3 minutes, and well, 2 hours and 3 minutes. I won't be home. I'm going to be working, but when I get home, I'm probably going to be checking out the new league, the Forbidden Sanctum. And maybe we'll be doing more Path of Exile content. Today actually went really, really well. Where are my stats? Yeah, actually today was really well. Holy crap. But nobody liked. If you guys are watching right now, don't forget to smash the like button. Come on, help a brother out. Help a dude out. Hit the like button while you're still here before we leave. We had 98 viewers in here and 2 likes. And 2 likes. Come on. Come on, man. Anyways, thank you guys so much for hanging out. I hope today has been informative, especially for anybody that wanted to start to learn Path of Exile. We dedicated the first, I think, like 3 hours, 2.5 hours. No, it was like 3. We were running maps still at like 3 hours. Just talking about how to get into Path of Exile and then some of the additional mechanics. There we go. We're up to 4 likes. Come on, we got one more person in here, right? One more person in here. Who is it? Who it be? But yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out. I hope this has inspired some of you to play Path of Exile, and if so, I hope I get to run some maps with you, or if you guys need any help, hit me up. I am definitely not running maps like Empyrean and his group, Empyrean and Snap Owl are, like we just saw, but who knows? Maybe we will be. Maybe we will be next league. I'm excited for this next league start. I'm not sure what we're going to be playing on Friday. Or I'm sorry, on Monday. I'm not sure what we're going to be playing on Monday. But you guys will know probably by the time that I do. It might just be some more Overwatch. It might be, you know, depending on how good the league is, I'm going to play it over the weekend. If the league is like addictingly good, we might just keep going with the Path of Exile content. But if not, we'll be switching games back and just kind of bouncing around like we have been. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. As always, thank you. I'm out of here.